Down here. 2 minutes introduction, 90 seconds to answer, 30 seconds if they want to follow up after everybody's had a chance to answer, and then a minute close. Okay.
And so they'll be open up signs.
Yeah.
With the times. And then we've also got one that's speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm Berkeley or downtown.
See what happens. So I'm going to tell my club.
See you still get it.
Oh. No, not saying. Yeah, just being here. Yeah. Well, not like it. Unfortunately. I see you. Nice to meet you. I'm Lisa.
I don't know. Like, it seems like there's a little different for there is a way to fire something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
How's it going? All right. I'm the CEO of the board. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. So,
Okay. Congratulations, I saw the announcement. What does he do?
Yeah, you there to take your short spots. I'm trying to hear you.
That's a long trip.
Let's just have. Looks like it's every day, so. My first in-person forum I've ever had to do.
Oh, yeah, because all
I didn't have to do any in-person ones the last time I ran.
now is CME is gonna be.
It's gonna be on Zoom.
Especially they said they were gonna do it in person. So for this year. So I thought maybe they were doing it in.
They
person, but they're
said-
gonna have it available for people to do. But
They decided just Zoom.
yeah. Hi. See, I thought it worked out really good. Very nice to meet you.
We're gonna see a lot of each other, I think.
Let's hope.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Well,
going
these are
forward
the
and
next
for
2 years.
definitely, but
These
yeah,
are the next 2 years.
hopefully forward
Yeah.
as well. But,
I have to turn this thing off because phones is like losing. I got to turn them all the way down, but it's still green.
do you have a little silence? There's like a little thing on the side.
That's it. Right there.
And it's
It's still works. But we.
I probably should just put it away. If I leave it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be tempted to flip it over.
It makes me high.
Oh, okay. Nice to meet you. Okay. All right. We're gonna get a call soon, though. But
Okay.
I'm trying to get my team
Yeah.
together. But I have to meet you. Okay. Thank you.
They have this lock. I'm gonna see those shoes. That's like,
Come on now.
that's a
What are you
shame.
talking about?
people should see them. Those are
No.
amazing.
Okay.
That's good.
And I didn't do any of that. I have all my work stuff out in my car, my notebooks, but I don't know.
Hey, you know what though? I figure it's freezing. It's
Yeah.
easier that way.
And I got yeah, I always.
I think it's a big honor that Mark would really appreciate the fact that the Columbia Board of Realtors has decided to name their forum after him because he enjoyed debating, whether it was friends or in a more formal setting, and he enjoyed discussing issues.
I think the first interviews probably that I did with him had to do with his political buttons, and he would come in and many of us knew that we had probably thrown away some in the past, thinking that these were no longer valuable, but to Mark they were like, this is a find, and he would tell you whether it was valuable or not.
One thing I'll really miss about Mark is he and I used to talk on the phone all the time, and especially during election night, we would call each other back and forth and text each other back and forth. So it was really hard to not have him this year to be able to talk about what was going on with the elections.
You know, Mark was a citizen, you know, and I truly admired him because he firmly believed in the goodness of government. He believed in the goodness of citizens. He encouraged people to run for office. He encouraged people to read their local newspaper, to go to meetings, to debate each other, and in a civil way. And I think that if there's one legacy, and it's that he would hope that everyone would just be involved in the community, be involved in Columbia, know your neighbors, take care of your neighborhood, take care of each other.
Mark was a tireless worker and supporter of our industry. He helped new practitioners and seasoned practitioners understand the nuances and the importance of local elections and the nuances of ordinances.
Nobody in this town knew more about zoning, about regulations, about the minutiae of city government, especially as it related to if you've got a new development, if you're doing some real estate work, if there's a plot of land here, a plot of land there. Nobody knew more about that stuff than Mark.
Mark was a great communicator, and I saw him as a planning and zoning commissioner. I saw him at neighborhood meetings. We didn't always agree on issues. We didn't always see things the same way, but Mark always treated people with respect. He was always prepared when he was making an argument for a particular development or case or issue that he was involved with.
I really enjoyed working with Mark Farnen on development proposals and our debates about zoning policy. We didn't always agree, but I respected his positions, and I think that he respected mine. And he really knew the nuts and bolts. I don't think anybody, with the possible exception of the city's planning staff, understood the details of the Unified Development Code as well as Mark did.
I think that the one thing we all learned from Mark Farnen is that it's possible to find common ground. No matter how emotional the subject may be, there's a place in the middle where we can meet. Time and time again, we saw Mark turn enemies into allies and opponents into evangelists. That was his gift. I think we're all living in a time of great hostility right now. Too many people draw a line in the sand and take their stand without ever trying to experience what it's like to walk in the other person's shoes. Mark showed us how important it was for us to have empathy, humility, and to find common ground. I think that will be Mark Farnen's legacy in our community.
So I think that there's a big gap, there's a big hole in our community that I don't know who will fill that. I think there are other people who understand it like Mark did, but I don't think that there are other people who are able to communicate it like Mark did, or have the willingness or the desire to communicate it. Somebody needs to model themselves after Mark so that they can do what we don't have being done right now.
His legacy is the fact that he's no longer here, and he's going to be so much missed, not only by people who are his friends, and of course his family, Eleanor and Lily, and his brothers and his sisters and his whole family, but by people who would always be like, oh, that's a job for Mark Farnen. That's Cole Farnen. He's the guy we need on this. That's his legacy.
He had that amazing sense of humor and the amazing ability to put people at ease and be able to say just about anything in the nicest way possible. And so I would like, particularly in these times, to see that Farnen factor grow, to treat people with respect, to treat people with excellent communication skills, and treat people the way we want to be treated. That's what I'd like to see, is just Mark's legacy as a great communicator and a positive person carried on.
Well, I'd say the number one legacy is his daughter, Lily. She's smart and great and very personable, just like him. And so obviously I think that'll be his top legacy. But also the friends that he left behind and the great memories that people have of him.
But it was always about the community with him. And that is a trait of a gentleman. And Mark fit the description of a gentleman.
He was just an exceptional person. I was very, very lucky to have him in my life. Very lucky. And I do want to say one more thing. I want to thank everyone who has written these incredible letters to me. Incredible kindness. And I won't forget it.
Are you looking to buy or sell real estate in mid-Missouri? MidMoHomefinder.com is your local source for buying or selling a home. Brought to you by the Columbia Board of Realtors. Search, save, and share listings. Even designate a specific area. Get property data and view local market statistics the way the pros do. Plus tips to make the most of life in mid-Missouri from local expert realtors. All with one easy-to-use website. Shop local with a local realtor on MidMoHomefinder.com. Discover home.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Gerke, 2024 Columbia Board of Realtors President. I'd like to welcome everyone watching the CBOR Mark Farnen Candidates Forum, both here in person and streaming it live at home this evening. Tonight will be a great opportunity for our community to learn more about those running for Columbia School Board and City Council elections. Local elections are one of the most important ways to impact change in our community. With that, I'd like to thank our candidates for attending this evening's forum. We look forward to hearing your vision for our future. And we'd also like to thank our moderator this evening, Mr. David Lyle. David was the former host of Columbia Morning with David Lyle on KFRU. With over 30 years on air, he used that platform to focus heavily on local and current issues happening in Columbia and Boone County. We want to thank David for continuing to moderate our forum after entering retirement last year. Prior to kicking off tonight's event and the thoughtful responses and debate that we will have, I would be remiss if I did not also mention who this forum is dedicated to. Mark Farnen was an influential both to this forum and during his time consulting for our Realtor Association. Mark's influence is still felt within the community, and we are honored to host this annual forum as a tribute to the many contributions he has made to Columbia and Boone County. And with that, I would like to turn it over to David.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Oh, please. Appreciate the opportunity to still be involved. It makes me pay attention to what's happened in the community. It's easy to unplug once you retire, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So we're going to start in with our school board candidates. The school board election comes up in early April. You'll know that. I imagine everybody here knows the date, and everybody here also knows what's happening as far as the school board election is concerned. You need to choose two to be in the school board, on the school board after the election in April, and we've got 3 candidates. So the format for this and for the next forum, which will be for the city council candidates, you'll have a couple of minutes to introduce yourself. I'm not going to say much about any of you. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves the way you want to. So we'll come down the line from far to near and let each of you introduce yourself for up to 2 minutes. And then after that, I've got a list of questions that have been provided by various board members and also others who have given them some input. I think it's a really good list of questions. I think I'll follow that pretty closely. And then at the end of that, if I have any follow-up questions or any other questions, I'll ask those. And then we will also open it up for those who are here who'd like to ask questions as part of the audience. 90 seconds to answer the questions. After everybody's had a chance to answer, kind of catch my attention, either raise your hand or kind of like a nice bid at an auction. Let me know if you want to add something, and then we'll give you another 30 seconds. Then at the end of the time, when we've gone through all and exhausted all of the questions, then we'll have a minute for you to give to kind of summarize what you'd like to end up with. Any other questions? Am I missing anything? I think that's all that we need to know at the beginning. So we'll jump in. You'll see at the front row there a couple of the board members and workers here at the Board of Realtors. They'll be holding up signs if you need to speak closer to the microphone. You don't have to bite it, but closer is better. People will want to hear what you have to say. And then you'll also get notices as the clock counts down on your answers. So Mr. Cobbins, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you'd like to start us off, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alvin Cobbins. I came to Columbia when I was 14 years of age. I went to grade school at Hayti Negro School down in Southeast Missouri. I graduated from Hickman High School right here in Columbia, Missouri. I also graduated from Columbia College with an associate's degree when Columbia College went from a Christian college to Columbia College. And I do believe that I was the first African-American male to graduate from that school with the associate degree. I then went on to the university and graduated from the university. And since that time, I have traveled around the world as a travel director, but the thing that's most important to me is the voluntary time that I've spent within the schools, within my community, and I'm an avid community volunteer. And I am currently a facilitator for the county, Boone County and Columbia, with the Jobs and Workforce Development. And I am running for the position on the school board. And I just wish that, that as I grow and as I get out into the community and ask people what they're looking for, that I will be that voice that represent them on the board. And since I still have a few times left, I want to be the voice and the tool in support of the parents, the teachers, the students, the administration, and the community, so that we can bridge that gap to where we can all sit down and talk about issues, things, and anything that's on your mind, how you want to go forward with the future, because together we can make a difference. And that's what I stand on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Snodgrass?
My name is Jean Snodgrass. I work as the executive director for Mizzou Hillel. So I work with mostly college students and also the university community, providing resources, doing work with different organizations, trying to make connections on that campus. I am also currently serving my first term as a school board member, and hopefully with the community support, we'll be able to do a second. I have 3 children. Been in Columbia for about 11 years. Actually, in just another week, it will be 11 years in Columbia. And my children, I have one that just graduated from Hickman and is currently at Mizzou, and I have 2 that are still in the Columbia Public Schools at the high school and the middle school level. Having experienced all of the levels of the schools, hearing from parents, hearing from teachers, seeing what my children and their friends and other community members are going through, really, I feel invested in our schools. I feel invested in our community, and I want to continue to serve so that we can continue to make Columbia Public Schools better, so that we can continue to improve on the things that need improving. I think we have a really amazing community. I think we have a really amazing school district, and there are always things that can be better. There are always ways we can improve, and there are always ways we can continue to be involved and to do even more. I really believe in our public schools. I really believe in our community. I want to continue serving, and I appreciate the opportunity to address some of the issues and concerns at this forum and other future forums, and to just talk to folks in the community about all that so we can make a difference. Thank you.
And I should note a nice point, because this is like the first forum, and I think the Board of Realtors like to kick this off. And here we are in the final day of January. It'll be February and March for you all to have several moments to get to know each other really well, and be able to anticipate any evolution along the way towards what you feel about running for this particular position. Mr. Potter, your opening comments, please.
Yes, my name's John Potter. I have lived in Columbia since I was in elementary school. I went to elementary school here. I went to Jeff Middle School, junior high back then, and Hickman. I have 3 kids in the district, 1 in elementary, 1 in middle school, and 1 in high school. I also am very involved in the school district, education. As far as the school board, I attend a lot of school board meetings. I have started a transparency and accountability group that is very influential, I would say, in the community, and has really, I think, helped get a lot of voices heard that haven't been necessarily heard before. I also am the co-chair of Braver Angels Alliance, which is a group to bring together the community from both sides of the political spectrum, red and blue, and we are evenly split in the leadership in that group. And I think it really helps to really understand the other side and also find common grounds with the other side. I also want to focus on 3 main issues. One is behavior issues in the district. The second one is academic performance issues in the district. And the third is bringing a diverse and inclusive voice to the board that hasn't been represented in a lot of years. I also have concerns when dealing with academic performance, the academic performances scores haven't been good here lately. We can see that with the never mind. I'll finish later.
You probably have a chance to come back and answer some of these questions and talk more about what you're focusing on. We're going to alternate who gets to answer the questions first, but we'll go back to Mr. Cobbins for this first question. And this is just kind of a general question about how do you define the duties of a school board member here in Columbia?
Well, it's like with most boards, the duties of the school board, as far as I know, I'm new at this, is that the school board kind of like is the governing body of the superintendent, and it goes on down from there. And they're more policy oriented. But the most important part I think about the school board is that it needs to be a unified school board. And it has to have the interest of the whole community at heart, not just the certain few people or not just the top level of the academics, but also the ones that are, let's say, for example, those that are homeless, and having an accurate and important way of identifying those and put together a plan to address the issues of those that are not making the grade, let's say, because that is one of the most important things, is that public schools such as this academically lags a little bit behind other schools. And I think that the concentration on the students, parents, and the whole district is really important. So the school board has a vital role to play in the success of the whole district.
I'm going to break what I said a moment ago. I said we'd let everybody answer and then come back for a 30-second follow-up, but expand, if you would, for half a minute on what you just meant as far as maybe a school district like Columbia falling behind other school districts. What were you referring to?
I was referring to, I do believe with what little I know, as I have been out visiting parents and teachers and stuff like that, that the Columbia School District rated pretty good, but there were students in there that did not rate very well. And so the attention, you can still have the attention on those that do well, but somehow we need to increase the attention on those that are not doing so well.
Okay, thank you. Jean Snodgrass, the question is, how do you define the duties of a school board member?
Yeah, so I think, well, if only I had known before. No, essentially, I think Mr. Cobbins kind of hit it, right? The school board is looking at policy, general governance, general oversight of the district, and also can serve, I think, as a bridge between the community and the administration. Can be a place where folks can come where they have concerns if they don't feel that they're being addressed. And as a school board member, you can direct someone, right? It's not always something maybe that a school board member can solve directly, but they can say, here's the place you go to make sure it happens. So kind of you get a little more insight into the runnings of the district and the way everything falls out, and really making sure that in that oversight role that we are being responsible about our focus, where we're spending our money, how we're allocating resources, making sure that we're really taking care of our teachers and our students and our administrators and our buildings, thinking about the big picture, what's happening in our district, what's happening to our schools, what's happening to the people in them, so that everybody can really work together again to make it all even better. We can focus on those students that aren't doing as well. We can focus on the students that are doing really well. We can really uplift everyone by focusing on the big picture.
All right. Same question. It's about defining the duties of a school board member. John Potter.
Yes, I think the school board should be a collection of the community, voices that represent different aspects of the community. It needs to be diverse and inclusive. Also, one of the main jobs is to hold accountable the superintendent, the only employee that the school board can one of the responsibilities of the school board is that they can hire superintendents or fire them if needed. Also, just to really represent the community, bring all stakeholders together, teachers, students, parents, and the community, and represent them in a way that produces a better education for all students.
Anybody want to add anything to what they said to that first question that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet? We'll go to Ms. Snodgrass' next question. What skills or traits do you have that you think would make you a good school board member? Of course, since you are one right now, I could change the term, the verse, the tense of those verbs, but you understand the question.
Maybe some people think I should be doing different things. So we'll see. I'll do my best. I think there's a number of things that I think I bring to the current board and I hope to bring to the next iteration of the board as well. I, from all my jobs, work very well collaboratively, work independently, have a really good sense of thinking about what is that big picture. I think that the time that I've been able to spend in the community and the time that I've lived here, I've done my best to get out to make connections with a lot of different groups of folks. And I think that helps as well because you get input and you get feedback from people in all different parts of the community who are having all different experiences. We know that sometimes different schools, students are having different experiences, teachers are having different experiences. So I think it's really helpful to be able to know, okay, here's someone from one part of the community, here's someone from a different part of the community. What can we do? What can we look at that they're experiencing and how do we make that into something that is cohesive for our whole district that makes it happen? And I think I'm a good listener and problem solver. And so I think these are all things that we need. We all need to be working together. We all need to be finding solutions that sometimes are compromises, but also really are looking at the best interests of our students.
Okay. Mr. Potter, same question. What skills or traits do you have that you think would make you a good school board member?
Yes, I think I have a ear to the community. I think I've provided a platform for voices to be heard in the community. There's a lot of issues with the board and being inclusive to certain political affiliations or ideologies. And I want to bring, like I said, diversity and inclusion to the board. I think that's the main thing, is that the board has been taking all of its pointers from just one side of the political spectrum. And I think there's a lot of other voices that need to be heard and represented on that board. And I will bring them and represent them as best as I possibly can.
All right, Mr. Cobbin, is your answer to what skills or traits do you have that you think would make you a good school board member?
Well, actually, like I said before, I'm an avid community volunteer. And the one skill that I think that I have is that I am out in the community, and I have been doing that ever since I was a voluntary juvenile court supervisor in high school, at Hickman High School. And I was also at Hickman when the school went out on strike because of the lack of Black cheerleaders, when the team was overwhelmingly Black. But in working with Wanda Faye Albert was an advocate for the community, and Principal Powell, and we worked with the school and we brought that to a conclusion. And what the principal had said, you guys got to go back to school, come up with a representative. And lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, I was selected by the school to represent the Black students at Hickman High School. And that was the beginning of a long history of working in the community, working within the school systems. And I, even today, several times parents will ask me to go to school when there's trouble. And all they have to do is call that school and tell them that I will be coming, even if it's just to pick up their children and get them back home because they don't want to lose their jobs. So I think I bring to the table just a lot of common sense and a willingness to work with everybody so that the solutions that we come up with is good for the whole. The whole.
I'm going to ask a question that I've never asked before, and it deals with your heart as well as your mind. I'm watching these kids play outside here, and you can hear them, and I'm watching their energy, and I'm watching, I don't know who they are. I'm sure they live in the apartments there. I'll start with you, John Potter. When you're going through town or right now sitting here, you're trying to get on a school board that many people say it's all about the children. It's all about the children. What are your thoughts when you just see random kids out playing and having a great time like these kids are? I mean, you want to be on a school board and hopefully they're going to school tomorrow and maybe had a good day today. What's your heart and mind say about seeing the kids?
I think there's when we're supposed to, with my faith, we're supposed to help the children, the elderly, the disabled. And so when I think about kids in my service, I think about what can I do personally to uplift students, especially. That's the realm I've been in for a while. So I think providing an education, starting with math and reading, are the fundamental basic foundation to be successful in our community. And so when I think about children and education and trying to get on the board, I really want to put those things first, because if you can't do math, you can't budget. And if you can't read, you can't learn.
Alvin Cobbin, the same question to you. You come by, I mean, these kids are having a great time out here. I think I'd like to be out there kicking the soccer ball with them. What do you think about when you see random kids? You don't know, they're not your kids, they're not your grandkids, they're not your neighbors, but just kids out playing and thinking, you know what, I'd like to make a difference.
Well, when you first asked that question, it brought something really close to my heart and in my mind. I did do 1 year in Pittsburgh public schools, and I was assigned to 2 inner city schools. And when I hear the children out there laughing and playing, it lets me know the experience that I had in the public school systems. The playgrounds were filled with trauma and some of those kinds of things, but some of the other schools in the outlying suburban areas sounded like that. And I just shared that experience with you for one reason, is that every child, no matter what the school is, has a God-given right to, once they step off the sidewalks into the ground, whether it's the parking lot, they deserve to have a clean, safe place where they can live, learn, and grow without being afraid, without all the trauma, without all the noise, and all of those other things. That is where we got to get to that point. Our schools have to be a safe place, not just for the students, but for the teachers and everybody that's concerned, the administration. You have to be in a safe environment so that you can teach. They have to be a safe environment so they can learn. And that's what the school board, we have to provide that for them if we're planning on educating them to the fullness of their abilities.
Gene Snodgrass, the same question to you. What goes through your heart and mind when you see kids out having a good time during the school day, or obviously right now, this what triggered this question is the fact that it's 3 or 4 hours after they've gotten home from school?
First, I think I really wish I still had that much energy after a full day of anything. That would be amazing sometimes. And also, like Mr. Potter and Mr. Cobbins have mentioned, that it's really amazing, right? It's so great to hear them laughing, and I want to hear kids laughing all the time. I want to hear kids enjoying themselves. It's what I want for my own kids. It's what I want for all of the kids that are in the community. And I want to do what I can to make that possible. whether that is helping to create safe spaces within the community, helping to make sure that our schools are safe, helping to make sure that our kids have the tools and the skills that they need in terms of social, to be able to have positive social interactions, so that they know what they're doing, so that they know that they have a freedom and that they are going to be protected and that this community is here and cares for them. And also, I really want that energy. They sound like they're.
We'll go to our next question. And Mr. Cobbins, you're first on this one. What's your view on school choice or charter schools?
Well, school choice is just what it is. It's a choice, and that everybody should have that choice to go wherever they can afford or wherever they choose to go. Okay, now charter schools, I can't speak a whole lot to charter schools, but I have had an experience with the charter school while I was executive director of the Inner City Youth League up in Minneapolis. And the thing that I know about the charter school is that those parents, that school was like number 1 or number 2 in the nation at the time. And it sat right in the neighborhood. And parents would drive like an hour and 25 minutes to bring their children to that school. So, being a community advocate that I am, I walked over to that school and they had a few children there that looked like me. Then I asked the school if we could do with the organization, it was a 501c3 organization, if I could come over and deal with the children that comes to the principal office the most. And we did 2 sessions every week, 45-minute sessions with those children because it wasn't that many. So again, school choice, everybody has their choice, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it.
Jean Snodgrass, will come to you. What's your view on school choice or charter schools?
So I think the question, I guess I'm going to think about it in a different way. One, which is just to say, I really, truly, deeply believe in our public schools, and I believe that our public schools need to be funded fully. And I think that when we talk about school choice and charter schools, the way it is used often is as a way to move money out of the public schools and give it to private entities that often do not have any of the oversight that our public schools have. And I am opposed to that. You can send your child anywhere, and there is no doubt that while the public schools does its very best to meet the needs of every student, it is our district in particular is a big district. We're the 5th largest district in the state. We're talking about 19,000 plus, right, students. There is no way, realistically, that every single individual student's needs are going to be met 100% of the time, because it's just not possible. And I have some friends who have found that like public school is not the right choice for their child. And so they've made a choice to put their child in a private school or to homeschool or to do something different. Absolutely support that. It's not about that. However, I do not support taking money away from our public schools and from the students that need it, because most of those other schools are not required to take everyone, and they do not have the oversight that the public schools have. So everyone needs to find what works for them. But I believe that the funding and our money needs to stay with our public schools where it can do the most good for our community.
John Potter, what's your view on school choice or charter schools?
Yes, I think I completely support parents' choice in their children's education. I think we need to put the children first when it comes to education. So public education works for a lot of students. All my 3 kids go to public school, and I have no intention of pulling them out. But there's a lot of circumstances where homeschool's better for some. I worked with a group that worked on the ESA program, which I've heard great stories of it helping, education savings accounts, voucher programs, or charter schools. I think there's a need for those in certain circumstances for certain kids. And so I think all options need to be on the table when dealing with children's education. And so therefore we can meet the need of the student where they're at and what that need is. And I do support public education. So, but I think there should be some options for students, especially when the schools shut down is when I was looking for other options for education because my kids weren't able to go to public school. So there needs to be choice for parents. Absolutely.
I want to go back and we're going to do a follow-up here. And Mr. Cobbins, I'm coming to you. I want you to, again, school choice, in your opinion, does that mean if I had a child, I could have that child choose which elementary school he or she wants to go to in the school district, or should I be bound by what the district says are the attendance areas? So that kind of school choice. Or are you talking also if 100 from Hallsville said, you know what, I could get a better education in Columbia, I want to send my kid to Columbia? Clarify your thoughts on school choice.
Okay. First of all, I believe in public schools. That's how I got my start in my education. And that's how all of my 5 little rugrats, where they're grown now, I better not call them that, don't y'all tell them. But all of them also went to public schools. So I'm in favor of public schools. I'm also in favor of us board coming up with different ways to keep those schools funded to the max, because I know that the public schools sometimes is in an area and it's based off of taxes for the funding, and sometimes that is low. But as it relates to choice, I had a situation before where a parent, as a matter of fact, it was my sister, Dr. Fanger, and she took her kid out of public school and put them in a private school. So I was saying that choice is only in that matter, not that in that manner. I'm sorry, but not that I say that everybody should go to private schools. No, but it's what the parent can afford and how they are. But that is not to take anything away from public school, because I believe.
And I'll come to Gene Snodgrass. Any further comments you'd like to make? I believe in Jefferson City right now, there is conversation about charter schools, adding Boone County as a county that could provide charter schools. It's very limited right now, only to the east side of the state in St. Louis. So anything you'd like to add in regard to this issue?
I think most of it I sort of addressed, but I think oversight is key. So I hope that if we are at a point where the legislature decides that charter schools is going to be an option for other places, that they also hold them, if they're getting public funds, to the same standards that our other schools are being held to. I think that's really important. And also I want to touch briefly, because you mentioned with Mr. Cobbins, right, this idea, like, does school choice mean, say, within Columbia, that anyone can go to whatever school? I think that we are all really aware that different schools, especially our elementary schools, have different reputations, right, in schools. And people say, like, well, this is a good school or this is a bad school. In terms of choice, I would like to see us get to a point where it doesn't matter where you are, because all the schools have that. When we do have to change boundaries because populations are changing, right, or our district is continuing to grow, that it's not about, oh my gosh, now I'm going to the bad school, right? But that everybody is recognizing that all of our schools have really amazing, unique attributes and good things that they can offer to all our students.
Mr. Potter, however, you want to follow up on this issue of school choice and or charter schools?
Yeah, I was just going to add that all 3 of my children went to Ridgeway Elementary School, which is a lottery school. And my wife and I have really appreciated that. It's a school where it's a lottery and they pick from every students have opportunities all across the district, and it's really diverse. It brings a lot of people together in one place from all over the community. And I think that it's something that needs to be expanded on, especially when, you're quote unquote dealing with bad schools or something. I think it's a possibility that, if you can turn a bad school into a lottery school, then we can mix some things up and maybe create some good change.
I'm going to follow up with a question, but go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, and I realize I'm the one that introduced the terminology. I don't actually think we have bad schools in Columbia. I think that we have schools that have different reputations, and we definitely have schools that don't test as well. And we've seen that. But we also have successful students, very successful students at all of our schools as well.
So
I
I'm
just
going to
wanted
ask you this question because your answer did make me think of a question. How do we make Blue Ridge Elementary the same as Mill Creek Elementary, and how you described it a moment ago? And everybody's going to have a chance to answer this. We'll start with Ms. Snodgrass.
Sure. I think, so one, I don't think it's about making the schools the same as each other. I think it's okay for different schools that are based in different parts of the community to have different cultures and to have different ways that they do things and different programs that might be standout programs. We see that everywhere. What we do want to do, though, is make sure that all of the students that are at any given school have the same opportunities to succeed as the students at the other schools. And I think the way that we do that is something that I think has been happening and that I hope will continue to happen, which is we start to look at which students need the most help and how do we as a district provide the resources to that particular school, whether that's additional teachers, additional educational instructors, learning specialists, whether it's providing, I don't know, additional after school care, whether it's helping to make sure there are meals that can be provided if there's a large free and reduced lunch population where they might be showing up hungry to school. We know that that affects learning. So looking at each of the schools individually, figuring out what are the things that we can do from a sort of big picture oversight place to make sure those individual buildings are getting the specific resources that they need to make them successful in the way that is going to help the particular students in those schools.
So John Potter, how do we equalize the experience of, say, a Blue Ridge Elementary with Mill Creek Elementary?
Yeah, kind of what I mentioned earlier is I think we should try lottery schools. I think if we add to the diversity of the school from every part of the district, I think we can break those schools up and just get a diverse population, and the kids will have a opportunity to learn and increase their scores. Like I said, my kids have done great. I think I would bring together people that were involved in Ridgeway. One of the school board members helped form Ridgeway, also the admin and the accountability and transparency group that I helped create, help start a lottery school. So I think going down that path and just opening it up for more students. I want to have a big lottery drawing.
Mr. Cobbins, I'll let you answer the same question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you about an experience that I had a few years ago here. I've had been custodial grandparents to children rather than allow them to be put in the hands of the state. My wife and I, we took them in and cared for them. And the story is about Blue Ridge and Derby Ridge. And it's about how the kids get into the school in the mornings. And there's nothing negative in this, okay? So don't go down that road. But one school had people outside you drive through, and the line was long, but it kept moving and you went through. The other school had a bottleneck every time. But to answer that question, my point is this: if each school would share the goods and the bads, and not the bads, but the good and the process and the successes with other schools, you could take some simple things like that. If it works over here, well, why not share it with somebody else? And it will work there too. And again, it goes in the classroom, it goes with security, it goes with those folks who are making sure that our kids get into the school safe, and it goes with the drivers making sure that our kids get back home safe. Sharing of information is really important. And just
go ahead. I'll let you
just
finish.
Imagine if you had a couple of parents volunteering out there, how nice and how orderly would those children be?
I think it's a very touchy subject, but I would say this. I also know that we're doing this for the Board of Realtors. And when I bought my house, that's a question that's asked. What school district am I in? And it impacts where I will decide to buy a home. And so I agree that we'd like to make them as equal as possible, but I think it's a gargantuan task. And so quick answer to this, and I'll start with you, Ms. Snodgrass. Would you incentivize teachers and pay more to teachers at certain schools to attract the top-notch teachers at places now that might need to see their performance levels boosted?
All of the compensation stuff for the teachers, is decided with bargaining. And I just want to apologize because since we are in bargaining and I am on the board, I just need to be careful about how I am able to answer this. But I will say that it is also around state laws. There are a lot of state laws that affect how compensation can be given to teachers, and including things that you actually cannot do. You are not allowed to give stipends for being in a particular building, right? Or things like that. However, I think that there are a lot of creative ways that we can start to incentivize, making sure, for example, that we have experienced teachers in some of these schools and making sure we have veteran staff, teachers that want to stay in those schools. And I know that the current administration and board has started looking at that. And I know that there's a lot of really brilliant people in the community that probably have ideas about that, and different organizations that help and have been talking about it as well. So I'm really hopeful that that is something that can happen, that we can start to see.
Because when we talk about resources and sharing the resources, teachers are resources.
Yep.
John Potter, your thought on my question?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if what your thoughts are, and I understand Jean Snodgrass, who is on the board, has answered this the way I expect it to be answered, is that there are limits as to what you can do. But also, could you or would you imagine trying to find a way to incentivize teachers by maybe, I said, paying them more to teach at X school as opposed to Y school? How would you get the best and the brightest to be at all the schools rather than seek to teach only at select schools?
I would try to find incentives for teachers to work in certain schools. If they went to that school, they might have an invested interest. If they live in that neighborhood, they might have an invested interest. I would try to find teachers locally that would have a passion for helping out their community, and they'll also have a inline track to meet the student where they are, and to be able to help with the parents and the students and the community, and just build that relationship to further that school on.
Thank you. And I truly, deeply believe that there are really good teachers in every single school. So I'm not saying that certain schools have no good teachers. We'll end this line of thought with Mr. Cobbin's final answer to this.
First of all, I think that all teachers needs a living wage pay. All teachers, they're not teaching in schools that were, when, of course, they were way back then. When I grew up, we didn't have all the issues that we're having now. And for that reason, again, I know that there's a lot of political and unions and stuff, and negotiations and that stuff, but rather than doing it this way, I think that that teachers need to be paid because of what they are doing, and they are professionals. The same that like the children's need to be in a safe place, so do the teachers. And if we can't get the schools that building and those playgrounds to allow them to do what they are supposed to do, then we have failed them. And we can no longer fail our teachers. We have to pay them. And now how that happens, I'm not so sure of how it's going to happen, but it's something that needs to be. They need to be compensated, because just think how long they're in that classroom. A third of the day, our children are with them and we are trusting them. And they need to be compensated accordingly. And if we compensate them accordingly and make the areas that they're in safe and friendly and clean and neat, then folks, the retention will be off the chain.
We're going to move to the next two questions, which relate to the budget. John Potter, you start on this one. One of the main ways the board governs the district is through the budget. What do you think are the most pressing needs of the district, and how can those needs be met?
Yeah, I think teacher pay absolutely is up there at the top of the list. I think we need to pay teachers accordingly, and so we can retain them, so we can pull them from other districts if needed, and try to create a stable environment for the student. The longer the teacher's in the classroom, the longer they're in the community, the longer they're in that school building, the more the student learns. And I want to create a consistent learning environment for all children. So we need to have competitive teacher pay. So that would be absolutely one of the things to use the budget for. Also, use it to concentrate on providing a educational environment. So we have to have different programs for behavioral issues in the classroom. I think that disrupts the educational environment for the rest of the students. And so we really need to focus on providing policies and procedures. And I don't know if it's necessarily another school, but another room or another place for students that are disrupting the educational environment. And I'm sure that would add to the expenses of the school district.
All right, let me repeat the question for you, Mr. Cobbins. One of the main ways the board governs the district is through the budget. What do you think are the most pressing needs of the district, and how can those needs be met?
Ooh-wee. Now, that's a tough one. I'm not so for sure, but I do believe that when I do get on the board, and if we are in unity, that we will come up with creative ways to supplement that budget so that the schools will be like the ideal that we've all expressed: clean, clear, safe places where we can all live, learn, and grow, especially our children. But the thing is that the living wage for the teachers should be standard. And the thing about the retention of the teachers is very important also, because if you keep the people that you have, and we have to support them and in every way that we can, even if each teacher has an assistant or some kind of way, but the board has the opportunity to fix it. And how that is, I can't say right now, but I would like to just seek more information from parents, from teachers, from the school, from the administrator, from the superintendent. And that will certainly be one of those things, because quality of our teachers is paramount to the success of the district.
Ms. Snodgrass, one of the main ways the board governs the districts through the budget. What do you think are the most pressing needs of the district, and how can those needs be met?
So I would agree with my colleagues. Teacher pay is really important. And in our current budget, I believe it's about 80% of our current district budget. It actually does go to administrators. Are mentioned.
About this?
I have. I think one, the clarifications would be great. I know some of the concerns or things that have come up is one, would it actually affect us if the county says to someone, you are eligible to not have your property taxes increased, but the district is assuming a certain percentage based on total property value. Does the county then owe that to the district? So there's a lot of questions in terms of where that discount is, so to speak, right? Or lack of increase is how that's happening. And so I think the clarification would be really important. I think, I know Boone County and others are considering some sort of application process. So just because you're retired, right? If you're still, your pension or whatever it is high enough, like maybe that doesn't mean that. But if you're really on a fixed income, then obviously we want to take care of the seniors in our community. I think that's really important as well. But over half of the income that our district gets, the majority of the funding is from property taxes. And so I think it has the potential to have a very real impact on the budget for Columbia Public Schools. We do not get as much from the state. We do not get as much from other sources. The majority of our funding is property taxes. And so, yes, it is a concern. And I think the clarifications that come through will be really important in trying to navigate what's going to happen.
John Potter, it's your question. What's your understanding of Senate Bill 190? Are you worried about the impact on the budget for the Columbia Public School District?
Yeah, I think it could impact the budget of the school system. How much, I'm not for sure yet. I think some of the things that need to be worked out is if it is based on a set income. If you have, as an elderly person just on Social Security and maybe a small pension or something like that, if there's a certain bar, as far as income, could they get tax relief? I think it's needed in this time. I think a lot of people budgeted for a economy without the inflation that we're dealing with today. And so I think there is a need for tax relief and retired folks. So I am not completely against it, but I think we do need to figure out some of the details.
Anybody want to follow up on this? Let's go to Gene Snodgrass for the next question. How do you plan to support a superintendent in their mission to improve academics in Columbia Public Schools?
So I think it's really important that as a board member, I'm really thinking about big picture and then doing what I can to support the administration, including the superintendent, while asking critical questions, right? Supporting them doesn't mean you just say yes to whatever is proposed, but it does mean that you are helping once there is a plan in place, doing your part. And I want to do my part to help make sure that that plan moves forward and is successful. So the plan that's proposed for any given thing, right? Like how we're going to get math scores up, how we're going to address behavior in a particular school, it might not be my initial thought, right? Oh, we should do it this way. But if I can see that the superintendent and the administration has a plan and it's going to get us there, they're the ones that are implementing the plan. And I want to support them. I want to make it successful because ultimately that's what's important. If we're trying to increase achievement, whatever the plan is, it needs to be successful for achievement to actually increase. And so I think asking critical questions, making sure things are really well thought through and that there's a really good plan in place, and then doing my best to make sure that it is implemented with fidelity.
John Potter, your turn on this. How do you plan to support a superintendent in their mission to improve academics in the school district?
Yes, I would continue to support Yearwood. Today, we got good news that they were going to eliminate SRG in middle school and high school. That was one of the main things I ran on last year. And so I would continue that effort and really support him. I know that he has the resume of bringing underperforming schools to high performing schools in Texas. And he didn't have near the amount of tools and resources that we do here. So I think that he's really showing that that he's a great leader for our district. And so I really look forward to working with him by holding all students to a high bar. That's actually my new slogan this year is raising the bar for all students. And I think he's done that by helping eliminate this SRG. I think also initially I wasn't too happy with him calling all the students scholars, but I think that is a reflection of him holding all the kids to a high standard. And so I want to continue supporting him in that effort. And I think he's made some great changes to the district here recently to move us forward in that direction.
Alvin Cobbins, your answer to how do you plan to support a superintendent in that superintendent's mission to improve academics in CPS?
Well, I think it's critically important simply because, was it not the board who decided to bring him here? And secondly, it's really important because I do believe that the superintendent is the one that brings the vision. the creative vision to take the schools, the district to a higher level. And once we get that vision, then it becomes upon us to support him and do what's called results-based accountability and figure out a way to accomplish the goals that he has set forth for the school. And I agree with what John just said, that bar is oftentimes high. And the only way that we can get there is if the board use result-based accountability, which most of the time is based on data, and work together as a unit, unified towards accomplishing that goal. And at that table, everybody has a seat at that table. Everybody has a voice. But with that voice, you also have responsibility. And that responsibility is to hold that board accountable, and we will hold that superintendent accountable. And it's only good for everybody. It's good for everybody.
30-second answer from both of you, or excuse me, all three of you, and we'll start with you, Ms. Snodgrass, about, I don't know if a school board member would ever get this email or text that says, you all never seem to be independent. You always seem to be doing exactly what the superintendent and administration wants. How would you respond to that?
I believe I responded to a few of those this month as the board responder. But I think it's really just understanding, one, that you may not agree with every decision. That doesn't mean it wasn't thought through. That doesn't mean that the board member, the superintendent, that folks didn't have a plan. Again, like I said, if there's a plan, if there's a clear path to the end goal, then I'm going to support it. And I'm going to also try to hold the superintendent and everyone else accountable. And I want to add too, that I think part of helping the superintendent raise achievement has to be a community effort. It's not only the superintendent, it's not only the board, it's the teachers, and it's the community as well, really helping this to all happen together.
John Potter, you get elected. I'm going to text you after the first meeting and say, you just seem to rubber stamp everything that the administration says. How do you respond?
No, I want to bring diversity and inclusion to that board. And I think that will be something that I will do is challenge a lot of stuff that I think is going on in our district, and really just add to just give people a different perspective and try to find common ground, and meet in the middle, because as a school board, you represent everybody, and it's not one-sided. We need to bring everybody together.
And finally, Mr. Cobbins, your answer to that question?
My answer to that question is, yes, we will try, but it's really important that the superintendent has the ability to sit down. And we go, and I heard someone say that you have to ask the critical questions. You have to ask the question to make sure that vision and that plan has a results, and that result has to do with everybody. And it's a win-win when you're able to work together, when you're able to sit around the table and ask the tough questions and come up with the best practices, the best answers, and go for what is the best for all parties involved.
John Potter, you're first at this one. The district is currently working with a consultant to determine options for attendance area boundaries. If you are elected, what factors will you consider when making decisions about boundary changes?
I will support not changing boundary lines only in absolute necessity. I think changing boundary lines, especially in underperforming schools, is detrimental to the students' education. I think that from listening to conversations at the Worley Round Street table and listening to teachers' conversations, that when we change the boundaries in a school, especially an underperforming school, we destroy the relationships that the teachers and the community and the students have been building on for years. And so when we break that community up and send 100 kids here or 50 kids there, the academic performance goes down because what has been built has to be started over. So I only in necessity.
Alvin Cobbins, the district is working with that consultant to deal with the options for attendance areas. If you're elected, what factors will you consider when making decisions about boundary changes?
You know, my idea of boundaries has a lot to do with the who, what, when, why, and where. In other words, why are you breaking up a boundary? Are you breaking that boundary up so that you can get a lot of smart kids together in the school over here? Or are you breaking that boundary up so that you can do this, this, and this? So in other words, I'm going to answer this with a question. Why do you have to go through all of that, paying somebody to come in to help you do boundaries? And I would have, before I answer that, I would have to have a clean and clear reason as to why we're doing it. And if it wasn't for the promotion of the whole community, then I'm sorry. I would say no. I need to know why the boundary, why the consultant is needed to do it.
Gene Snodgrass, talking about attendance area boundaries and the factors that you would consider when making decisions about those.
I'll just say I'm sorry now, because we should all be saying that, because no matter who's on there, no matter what vote happens, someone is angry. I'll say, so when the boundaries need to be changed, because in this instance, a new school is opening up, or in other instances, schools become overcrowded because population density changes in the different areas. So the consultant comes in. I think there's a few different things that for myself are all important and are often in tension with each other. And it's never an easy decision. And so always looking at different things. I think there's value in having a community school. That is, if students are able to be closer, they don't have to be on the bus as long. They're able to walk. Students who, especially at the upper levels, right, want to do after school activities or sports or things like that. It's easier for families to get to the school to support and participate in things. That's really important. And we also know, because and we've had a lot of complaints in the community, right? A lot of people have noted that some of our schools that have much higher populations of free and reduced lunch, or different socioeconomics, sometimes have more difficulty. Those are some of our schools that are the Title I schools, right? Or things like that. And so to break that up, if it's about a certain area or neighborhood, then sometimes that means that kids are on the bus longer, and that now they're not in their neighborhood schools, but now you have maybe more diversity in all of the given schools. And so I think those things can sometimes be in tension with each other, but they're also both really important things to consider. And those are two of the big ones. And I think also some of those connections that families have already built, and wanting to make sure that families that previously had to switch schools don't have to do that again, so that there can be some consistency for families and students.
I think you described the tension well. How do you reduce that tension?
Magic. No?
Okay. John Potter, you want to have an opportunity to follow up?
Yeah, while talking with teachers and community leaders, they also told me that using equity to change these lines is not helpful at all either.
Equity meaning trying to even up maybe what you see as free and reduced lunch population in each school.
Yeah, I think so.
So you would come down on the side of keep it unified, organized neighborhood.
Yes,
by area rather than equalizing.
A new school is absolutely a necessity, but other than that, I don't see any other reason.
A new school, yeah. A new school is going to take students from an existing school. There's no way you can avoid that. Mr. Cobbins, do you want to make a final comment on this particular topic?
No, it's just that I need more information And thank you. That's a lot about it.
Alvin Cobbins, you're first on this. Serving on the board requires an investment in each member's personal time. Beyond the meetings, there is preparation for meetings, reading and responding to emails, attending events, visiting schools, meeting with community groups, and more. You want to suspend your campaign right now? Talk to any of the other school board members here, and it becomes a consuming job as much as you want it to be. How will you be able to make the time necessary to perform your duties as a school board member?
Well, as you know, I am retired, and I do have some voluntary assignments in the community. Once I get on the school board, I will be scaling down some of my voluntary activities and not getting out of it. But one of the biggest volunteer assignments that I have now is close to nearing the end, and that's the results-based accountability that I'm facilitating for the county and the city of Columbia, Missouri. So I don't see that as a problem for me because, to be honest with y'all, my voluntary experience that I've had ever since I first started as a teenager is more important to me than any other job that I've ever had. So this is who I am, and I love it, and I appreciate it, and I give it my all.
Gene Snodgrass, you don't need me to go through that list of what the demands are other than just showing up to a meeting. So how do you make time, the time necessary to do the duties as a school board member?
Magic? No, I'm sorry. I was watching anyway. I think a few things. One is really being conscious of my schedule and my time. Obviously, I have a full-time job. I actually love my job, so I spend a lot of time there as well. When I got on the board a few years ago, I actually cut back on some additional activities that I was doing, which I really loved. I encourage folks to join the Mid-Missouri Community Orchestra. I think they still need violas because I can't be there. But I think really paying attention to the schedule, really being intentional about what you're doing, and also quite honestly with a lot of help and support. My family is really helpful, right? I have a meeting, I can't go pick you up. So my daughter or my husband picks my other daughter up from something. So there's a lot of communication and a lot of help that happens. And then it's really just prioritizing it, making sure that I have set that time aside because I have to read those contracts and I have to read that agenda and I have to have that meeting. And it's important, so it gets done because it has to.
John Potter, same question to you. The investment of time that a school board member gives, how would you be able to make the time necessary for that?
Yeah, I've been really active in education. I've attended a lot, if most of the school board meetings for years now. I listen and return emails to parents, teachers, and community members all the time. I stay active in my Facebook group, the Transparency and Accountability for CPS. And so I would continue doing what I'm doing with a title.
Anybody a follow-up? I think we've answered that the best we can. Gene Snodgrass, to you. What's the biggest reason you want to be on the school board?
I believe in our public schools. I think we have, like I said in the opening, we have a really amazing community. We have really amazing schools, and they can be even better. And we have a really great group right now that is slowly changing a culture, and we have an administration that is really focusing on building student achievement, and they're starting to see those results, really focusing on it, really focusing in on providing additional professional development to our teachers, really focusing in on the ways that we are supporting all of the members of that school community. I think there's a lot of really amazing work that has been happening over the last 3 years, and also before that, not to imply that it only happened once I got on the board before, but that it is continuing to happen. And I want to be part of it. I just really think that public schools have a lot to offer, and I think that our particular Columbia public schools can be so much, and I want to see that happen.
Mr. Potter, what's the biggest reason you want to be on the school board?
To add diversity and inclusion to the school board, to represent voices that haven't been heard in a long time, and to help children get a better education, all children. And I have a passion for this, and I really just want to concentrate on providing the educational environment that's needed for all students to achieve the goals that are set for them, and just holding them to the highest bar possible.
Alvin Cobbin, the same to you. What's the biggest reason you want to be on the school board?
Well, I tell you, I thought about the school board for a long time, and this was an opportunity. And one of the things that I want to bring with me to the board is, again, I just want to be that voice for the community. And I just want to be a tool so that we can all come together, parents, teachers, administrators, everybody. And and I'm gonna stop in the middle of that, and I know it's confusing, but I just want to see more parents involved in this education of their children. I just do. I just wonder if you had 5 or 10 parents at Blue Ridge or Derby Ridge or Hickman, imagine what that would do. And I honestly think that parent involvement in each parent's, I mean, they can't be there sometimes, but if we can get a few parents in each school to volunteer an hour, a month, a week, or day, or whatever, I think it'll make a change. So, in other words, I think that getting parents involved, and it will let the teachers know that the community is in support of them.
I'm going to count this as a follow-up, so it's going to have to be short answers. I'm going to start with Gene Snodgrass on this. You mentioned culture, so I want each of you to define for me what you see as the current, I think you were referring to culture of the current school board makeup. Is that correct?
More broadly, but I think.
Okay, and well, just however you want to interpret
Yeah.
culture, what is the culture that you see?
Yeah, I think I see a lot of really good problem solving, a lot of question asking, a lot of inquisitiveness, and a lot of really looking at programs, looking at ideas, looking at our budget, looking at all of these things and saying, why are we doing this? And it's not, you said before, right? Like, how do you respond to those emails? Like, you just rubber stamped all these things. It's not about rubber stamping it, but it is about really looking at it. And I don't think we should be changing things just because we want to change things, but we also shouldn't be keeping things just because that's the way we've always done it. And I think right now in our district, there is more and more real intentional looking and examination of the different programs and the different things that we're doing. And I want to see that continue, because I think that will help as we move forward in helping to raise student achievement, because we're being so focused in how we spend our money and how we spend our time.
John Potter, culture, what do you think of when you hear somebody say, I don't like, or I do like the current culture around the school board or the school district?
Yeah, I remember when I first got involved with the school district, and there was a different superintendent, a lot of different school board members. And I think that with the new superintendent and new school board members, the culture has changed, and it is more active, I would say, instead of a rubber stamp than it once was. I think I really take my hat off to Dr. Yearwood for bringing that to the district. I think he, has shown himself to do things that he feels is right. An example of that is when the students were getting 50% credit or 50% grading scores for doing nothing, and that was part of the SRG Foundation, and also removing inappropriate signs from school hallways. And so he's done things, and we've seen things from the current board that have definitely changed the culture that I once knew.
And Alvin Cobbin, same to you. What comes to mind? Word association, culture.
What I think about when it's talking about culture, again, I keep saying this, I go back, that there is a seat at the table for everyone. And again, because there is, the success comes when everyone plays a part. Everybody plays a part. So the culture, like the RBA process, there was a seat at the table for everybody, and everybody had a voice. All those ideas were thrown into the pot. And out of the discussion, you prioritize what you're going for. And once you get that accomplished or get it to where it succeeded, then you go back and pick up the other things. So when I think about culture, I think about the invitation for everybody to participate.
I'm going to try to squeeze in two more questions and then your closing comments. John Potter, you're first on this. You've mentioned this a couple of times. You're talking about voices not being heard and how inclusion motivates you to run for this particular position. What are the voices not being heard? What do you want to who do you want to include?
Conservative voices, I think, Republican voices. I think there's been just a lack of political certain. The district has been dominated by one political ideology and controlled by one political ideology, and I think we need to break that up with a different thought process when it comes to education. You know, when I ran last year, SRG was, when I brought it up, and you know, I think this equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion that's been brought into our district is just devastating academic performances. And when I brought that up last year, I mean, I was attacked, called names and stuff, and then and now we're seeing that people have come to realize that yes, it is a big issue, and a lot of angles that I take in dealing with issues in the district, I just immediately get called names, and that's just no way to treat a community that is 30%, 40% agreeable with me in a certain ideology. So when anybody in that group brings up what they think is appropriate with restroom policies, equity policies, behavioral policies, we need to work together instead of divide.
Alvin Cobbins, to you, whose voices are not being heard? Who needs to be included that's not now?
Well, I'm in the process of getting around to as many people as I can, and listen to them and hear them. And I want to represent the community at large. And you know what? As difficult as it is, the worst thing that could happen is we can get political in this process. No, let everybody have a voice. And if you choose whatever side you choose, even if your idea is not represented at that point and at that time, would you hold the line and disrupt the whole process, hoping that the whole thing falls? No. Sometimes we have to humble ourselves in order that the process, that the board succeeds. That is the number one objective. Success with the board, success with our children, success with the teachers, and success with the whole process. So regardless of who I am, willingness to work with all those involved is key. And anyone that holds up the process because they are stuck in their own feelings or their own ideologies. I would say, let's sit down and let's talk and let's come up with something that we have to find a common ground so that we can work together, because it only helps everybody.
Gene Snodgrass, whose voices, if any, are not being included right now?
I think that a lot of the voices are being heard. I think the tricky part is some of the voices we just don't know that we're missing them. I think that there are often some of our minority and marginalized populations that aren't able to get to board meetings or don't feel that they can reach out to some of us. Or don't feel like they have those connections. I think that's something as a board we probably need to work on a lot more. I know for myself, I do. But I also think that there are certain student voices that probably aren't being heard. And I think that there are families, we have folks that are retired. We have some of our college students that are here. I know this town likes to have kind of a love-hate relationship with all the college students, but as someone who works with them, right, like that's a huge population. They're here. I work with a lot of students who are student teachers in our schools. They have a lot to say, and they have ideas, and they're seeing what's happening in our schools as well. I think we need to get a lot of feedback from a lot of different folks, and we need to make ourselves available and accessible, and we need to hear all those voices. And because something gets done that you spoke out against, it doesn't always mean that the voice wasn't heard. Sometimes it means people didn't agree, and that happens too sometimes. And I know that that can be frustrating, but thinking about big picture and really trying to do the best thing for the majority of our students so that all of our students can succeed in the best way possible and our district can do better.
Well, we need to go to our final statements, and you each have 60 seconds to kind of wrap up whatever you want to say or make a final sales pitch here at this particular forum. And we'll start with John Potter on this.
Yes, I like I said in my intro, I want to focus on academic performance, behavioral issues. I want to take things off the plates of teachers, take some responsibilities away in order for them to just focus on education. I think providing that educational environment is the utmost importance. I think a cell phone policy, a district cell phone policy is needed so we don't put that burden on the teachers. I think it needs to be consistent throughout all the schools. And so therefore that would, the teachers could educate more and stop dealing with phone issues. I've heard a lot about that here recently.
That was really good timing. I'm sorry, but I couldn't pass that one up. I don't know. Alvin Cobbins, your 60-second final statement today.
Okay, here. It's just to be a voice or two with all the students, the parents, the teachers, and everyone. I just want to be that person that bridged that gap so that we can all sit down and reason together and talk about issues and what matters so that we can all be on the same page and we can all address the issue. Because in my final statement, together we can make a difference. Apart, it will take forever, but together we can do this.
And Gene Snodgrass, your wrap-up statement tonight.
Sure. I want to see our public schools succeed. And I think that they do succeed in many ways. And I think that there's things that can be improved. I think that our community can come together. I think that we can do more to support our students, our teachers, our administrators, our support staff. And I think that it takes an effort from everyone in the community. And I want to be part of the work that has been happening and that is ongoing and that is making a difference. And I want to continue to be part of that. And so I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to continue to serve on the school board, to be able to keep making a difference in supporting our public schools and our students.
Well, you all have survived your first forum of the 2024 campaign season. We appreciate your participation, and just think of how it's going to feel when you get to the end of March, early April, and you say, how many of these have we done and how much better I am at that point in time. And thank those of you who are here. I know some of you may be leaving and are going to call it a night after this portion. We're going to pause for 15 minutes at 6:45, though we have part two, and that is going to be the city council races. We have one race. We should have three candidates. We'll have the unopposed candidate from her ward, and then the two who are running to have the only real race. And I understand there is a recall vote also, but we're not going to be touching upon that during the city council portion of tonight. So thank you again. Thank you all again. 15 minutes. We'll start back up.
I think it's a big honor that Mark would really appreciate the fact that the Columbia Board of Realtors has decided to name their forum after him because he enjoyed debating, whether it was friends or in a more formal setting, and he enjoyed discussing issues.
I think the first interviews probably that I did with him had to do with his political buttons, and he would come in and many of us knew that we had probably thrown away some in the past, thinking that these were no longer valuable, but to Mark they were like, this is a find, and he would tell you whether it was valuable or not.
One thing I'll really miss about Mark is he and I used to talk on the phone all the time, and especially during election night, we would call each other back and forth and text each other back and forth. So it was really hard to not have him this year to be able to talk about what was going on with the elections.
You know, Mark was a citizen, and I truly admired him because he firmly believed in the goodness of government. He believed in the goodness of citizens. He encouraged people to run for office. He encouraged people to read their local newspaper, to go to meetings, to debate each other, and in a civil way. And I think that if there's one legacy, and it's that he would hope that everyone would just be involved in the community, be involved in Columbia, know your neighbors, take care of your neighborhood, take care of each other.
Mark was a tireless worker and supporter of our industry. He helped new practitioners and seasoned practitioners understand the nuances and the importance of local elections and the nuances of ordinances.
Nobody in this town knew more about zoning, about regulations, about the minutiae of city government, especially as it related to if you've got a new development, if you're doing some real estate work, if there's a plot of land here, a plot of land there. Nobody knew more about that stuff than Mark.
Mark was a great communicator, and I saw him as a planning and zoning commissioner. I saw him at neighborhood meetings. We didn't always agree on issues. We didn't always see things the same way, but Mark always treated people with respect. He was always prepared when he was making an argument for a particular development or case or issue that he was involved with.
I really enjoyed working with Mark Farnen on development proposals and our debates about zoning policy. We didn't always agree, but I respected his positions, and I think that he respected mine. And he really knew the nuts and bolts. I don't think anybody, with the possible exception of the city's planning staff, understood the details of the Unified Development Code as well as Mark did.
I think that the one thing we all learned from Mark Farnen is that it's possible to find common ground. No matter how emotional the subject may be, there's a place in the middle where we can meet. Time and time again, we saw Mark turn enemies into allies and opponents into evangelists. That was his gift. I think we're all living in a time of great hostility right now. Too many people draw a line in the sand and take their stand without ever trying to experience what it's like to walk in the other person's shoes. Mark showed us how important it was for us to have empathy, humility, and to find common ground. I think that will be Mark Farnen's legacy in our community.
So I think that there's a big gap, there's a big hole in our community that I don't know who will fill that. I think there are other people who understand it like Mark did, but I don't think that there are other people who are able to communicate it like Mark did, nor have the willingness or the desire to communicate it. Somebody needs to model themselves after Mark so that they can do what we don't have being done right now.
His legacy is the fact that he's no longer here, and he's going to be so much missed, not only by people who are his friends and of course his family, Eleanor and Lily, and his brothers and his sisters and his whole family, but by people who would always be like, oh, that's a job for Mark Farnen. That's Cole Farnen. He's the guy we need on this. That's his legacy.
He had that amazing sense of humor and the amazing ability to put people at ease and be able to say just about anything in the nicest way possible. And so I would like, particularly in these times, to see that Farnen factor grow, to treat people with respect, to treat people with excellent communication skills, and treat people the way we want to be treated. That's what I'd like to see, is just Mark's legacy as a great communicator and a positive person carried on.
Well, I'd say the number one legacy is his daughter, Lily. She's smart and great and very personable, just like him. And so obviously I think that'll be his top legacy. But also the friends that he left behind and the great memories that people have of him.
But it was always about the community with him. And that is a trait of a gentleman. And Mark fit the description of a gentleman.
He was just an exceptional person. I was very, very lucky to have him in my life. Very lucky. And I do want to say one more thing. I want to thank everyone who has written these incredible letters to me. Incredible kindness. And I won't forget it.
Are you looking to buy or sell real estate in mid-Missouri? MidMoHomefinder.com is your local source for buying or selling a home. Brought to you by the Columbia Board of Realtors. Search, save, and share listings. Even designate a specific area. Get property data and view local market statistics the way the pros do. Plus tips to make the most of life in mid-Missouri from local expert realtors. All with one easy-to-use website. Shop local with a local realtor on MidMoHomefinder.com. Discover home.
Good evening. I'm Alyssa Gerke, 2024 Columbia Board of Realtors President. I'd like to welcome everyone watching the CBOR Mark Farnen Candidates Forum, both here in person and streaming it live at home this evening. Tonight is a great opportunity for our community to learn more about those running for city council elections. Local elections are one of the most important ways to impact change in our community. With that, I'd like to thank all of our candidates for attending this evening's forum. We look forward to hearing your vision for our future. We'd also like to thank our moderator this evening, Mr. David Lyle. David was the former host of Columbia Morning with David Lyle on KFRU. With over 30 years on air, he used that platform to focus heavily on local issues happening in Columbia and Boone County. We want to thank David for continuing to moderate our forum after entering retirement last year. And prior to kicking off tonight's thoughtful responses and debate, I would be remiss if I did not mention who this forum is dedicated to. Mark Farnen was influential both to this forum and during his time consulting with our Realtor Association. Mark's influence is still felt within the community, and we are honored to host this annual forum as a tribute to the many contributions that he's made to Columbia and Boone County. And with that, I would like to turn the event over to David.
Again, I appreciate being asked to be involved in this. It's always educational, and I really do appreciate the chance to be here and to do this. So on the ballot coming up in early April, Ward 1 members are going to have the question of recall of Nick Knoth, whether to have him stay in his position as that ward representative. Now, that's not part of the forum tonight, so we're not dealing with the recall of Councilman Knoth in Ward 1. We do have 2 candidates for Ward 2. There will be a new council member from that ward. And then we have Betsy Peters, who has been a representative of the 6th ward on the council for some time. And we're pleased that she's able to be here and also to deal with the questions and with the event tonight. This is the first one, as I said, before the school board candidates a while ago. This is the first one of what sometimes turns into a whole lot of forums over the next couple of months leading up to early April. And we appreciate all of you participating, also the crowd for you being here. We may or may not, we did not, I'm sorry, a while ago have chance for questions from the audience, but we'll see if we're able to get to those before we wrap up, which we're scheduled to do no later than 8:15 tonight. So we will alternate who goes first. The format is you'll have a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves, up to 2 minutes of that time, and then when I ask questions, we'll alternate who gets the first answer on those, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer. And then if you want to follow up, or if I feel like we need clarification, I'll give you another 30 seconds. And again, we're pretty lenient, although the signs are coming from the front row there. So they'll give you a countdown and tell you when you have 30 seconds left of that allotted time. And then they'll hold up the red stop sign. Finish your thought. Don't just cut it off. Feel comfortable finishing your thought. And then should we do have people. This is a fairly small room. The acoustics are pretty good, so people can hear here, maybe without a microphone, but people who are watching and listening elsewhere, if you need to be closer to the microphone, you'll get the closer to the microphone sign. And that will mean that you need to get closer, obviously, to the microphone. So here we go. Let's start with Betsy Peters. She's one who's got experience, and so she will be the relaxed one on this front dais for tonight. You've been serving as a council member. The first question is, how do you see the role of a city council member, and what would be your top 3 priorities? Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Let me go back. I didn't let you all have a chance to do your introductions. I already jumped right into questions. Forget that question. Strike that from the record. We will have the jury and the court not know that that was already asked. Betsy Peters, go ahead and introduce yourself. You got 2 minutes to open up.
Okay. And I'm very happy to have the signs because I was looking for my phone so I would have some idea what the times are. But so I'm Betsy Peters. I am the 6th Ward City Council person. I was originally elected in 2015 while I was still working as a physician over at the University of Missouri. I worked at the Women and Children's Hospital in the neonatal unit. So I got to take care of the small babies and had the privilege of helping them get started and knowing their parents. So I enjoyed that a lot, but I did finally retire in 2017. So since then, I've been just a retired physician and a city council person. I also have rental properties, so I spent most of the day working on that kind of stuff, so that keeps me out of trouble. I've enjoyed being on the city council, sometimes more than others. Depends what's happening that night or who's irate. I've gotten so far 1 call about roll carts today and 1 agitated email about it because they're delivering them in my neighborhood. But anyway, I've enjoyed being on the council, and I feel like with the amount of experience I have that it's worth staying on for another 3 years. I have no one running against me, so hopefully that means I will be reelected. I guess there could always be a write-in candidate, but we'll hope not. So, you know, I've enjoyed meeting people, and I enjoy trying to help sort out the issues that the different neighborhoods have. So, and I feel like the council's moving forward now, so it's sort of fun to be on it. So that's it.
Thank you. I thought this was going to be the first forum of council members in like decades that we wouldn't hear the 2 words roll carts, but you
no, sorry. That happened today in my neighborhood. That's why.
I understand.
Dramatic.
All right. The candidates for Ward 2, and we'll start with Robert Schreiber III. 2 minutes to introduce yourselves to this group.
Hi, my name is Robert Schreiber III, and I'm running for City Council, 2nd Ward. I was born and raised here in Boone County. I grew up at the end of Inglewood Road next to the Mark Twain National Forest. Went to school in Ashland. Go Eagles. I started building homes when I was 17 on my dad's house out in the country. I started as a laborer and then basically kept on with the same crew for the next 20 years, building houses throughout Boone County, in different states, and throughout the city of Columbia. I moved to Columbia in 2003. I was living with 6 friends at the time, just so we could afford the rent here in Columbia. It was a learning life skills like conflict resolution and who ate my sandwich out of the fridge. I ran my own construction business through the worst of the pandemic, keeping 5 people employed and safe. Currently, I am a union worker at the University of Missouri, working as a maintenance man for the Terra apartment complex. That is mostly housing grad students and a lot of international students. So it is a nice place to work, and I get to learn a lot about the world, other cultures, and just a lot about what they're researching. Yeah, I hope to get on the city council so I can make a difference and be a voice for the workers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lisa Meyer, you have 2 minutes to do your introduction.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to share with you a little bit about myself and why I'm running. My father was first-generation American-Italian. Most of my childhood and adolescence was spent in Illinois, my first 12 years on a farm and then the St. Louis Metro East. I am the first person in my family to earn a college degree. I worked in healthcare, the arts, and financial advising. Today, I've been married for a little over 20 years to my husband, Jim. I have been working as a small business owner in real estate for well over a decade. We moved into Ward 2 in 2005, and I love and I passionately promote our ward. Why am I running? To serve my fellow Ward 2 citizens by staying focused on core issues. I'm asking Ward 2 members, what matters to you? I'm asking, I'm listening, and I'm taking notes. Most, not all, but most concerns fit into 3 general categories: safety, infrastructure, health, and well-being. In Ward 2, we have beautiful parks, beautiful, beautiful parks. Yet I've had several people tell me they don't feel safe on the trails and in the parks. I've also had people say they don't feel safe at Columbia Mall, especially after dark. A few shared petty theft concerns, including one senior citizen who told me about how she put garden lights out to only have them stolen overnight. If elected, I will support our professional police department and first responders with the resources they need to hire and retain top-notch candidates and support crime prevention. We don't want to just fill positions. We want to attract the best of the best. I will focus on core issues: safety, infrastructure, health, and well-being. My name is Lisa Meyer, and I hope to earn your vote on April 2nd.
All right, thank you. So a moment ago, I already jumped ahead to start with the questions, but I'm not going to ask you that question because you've had all that time to think about it. So I'll go back to Betsy Peters. You get to start on this one. So one of the big decisions recently was the selection of a police chief. Let's pick up on the police idea here. How do you feel that selection process went? Your satisfaction with it, your reaction to the process of selecting Joe Schluty as the police chief?
I think it went well. It was a national search, as we have a tendency to do, and then we always seem to end up with a local person after we check out what's out there, and then feel that the local person will do a good job. Jill has a lot of good ideas, and she's articulate, and she's been around for a number of years, in different capacities in the police department. She comes with just a wealth of knowledge, and I think the respect of the police officers that work under her. She's already made a lot of changes. I'd like to say with a little help from the city council and mainly the city manager, we've been able to raise beginning salaries, and we're working on compression issues, trying to do a better job of retaining our police officers. So I think Jill's got a little advantage there simply because she can offer better salaries, but she's done a really good job already of recruiting, it sounds like. So I'm going to hope she continues that because we're 40 short or 50 short. She also has good ideas about when she can use non-sworn officers. So I think that she's got a lot of ideas, and she's worked in the community long enough to sort of know what she needs sworn officers for and what we can use someone else for. So I'm looking forward to see what she can do.
So that's a perspective of someone who was on the council when the selection was made. Mr. Schreiber, your answer to from outside as you watch that process unfold, your thoughts about the selection of the new police chief?
Well, with talking with the police officers union and having meetings with the police officers, yeah, I agree. They say they are shorthanded, that we need to hire more police officers. I don't know much about the selection process that went through to select the new chief, but I do support the police officers and think that we need to have a well-trained and long-lasting police force for Columbia because, well, that gives institutional knowledge, and that's what we want, is to have that institutional knowledge of police officers that have been seen around the community, that can work with the community, and yeah, I think build those relations.
Ms. Meyer, your answer to what you saw, and I understand you weren't in the nuts and bolts of it, but your thoughts about how the police chief was selected.
One part of it that I really appreciated was the interview where all citizens were invited to participate, and all of the candidates were asked the same questions. I attended that meeting, and then following that meeting, we were asked to rate who we put as number 1, number 2, and number 3. And I'm glad that the person that I put as number 1 was chosen. I think that we're in for some excellent leadership, and hopefully we can all do what we can to support effective change and listen to her ideas. Be on her team. They need us to be on their team.
I want to start with Robert Schreiber on this one. It's a related question, one that was provided by the Board of Realtors. We talk about supporting the police chief. How should the city council support the police chief? What tangible ways are there to support the police chief?
Well, the biggest thing that I am hearing from what the city council can do is start to help out with their funding their pensions. That is one of their major issues. Their pensions is what a lot of them sign up for. I think in the upper 80 percentiles. And right now, there is question with funding the pension, and it seems like the can has kind of been kicked down the road a bit to where we need more input from the city council and working with the city manager to help get the police and all the safety officers across Columbia, like the fire department and the emergency response, get them funded so that they can show up and do their job.
Lisa Meyer, how should the city council support the new police chief?
We need to listen. We need to listen, and we need to listen. And then we need to give them what they need to do their jobs. Do they need more training materials? We need to provide them. Do they need to, I agree with the pension piece. That is one that we need to address and follow through with our promises. But we need to listen, and we need to trust that when they're asking for things, that we need to give it to them so that they have the materials that they need to be able to train people and retain officers.
Betsy Peters, how's the city council supporting the new police chief, or how should it?
Well, hopefully we're supporting them by funding. So we've already done that, and to continue to do that. We need to support the police chief. She's redoing, she's changing, and I think she just did this actually at the last meeting that we agreed on. She's sort of reorganizing the police department. We need to be supportive of that. She has a professional standards division, I believe now. So, she's looking at what she needs to do. We need to be supportive of that, certainly not critical of it. We need to support our police officers. The pension fund has been an ongoing problem. We do continue to work on funding it. It is funded at about 60%, and it should be funded about 80%. So we keep looking at how to do that better. We also are looking at if there's a better pension plan than expecting the city to do it, because it's getting better, but not great.
All right. Anybody want to add anything? I'll oftentimes ask if you want to follow up with anything. If you do, catch my attention. We're talking about police that's related to crime. So Lisa Meyer, you're first on this one. What are your thoughts about crime in Columbia, and how would you improve public safety?
I think the community policing model is an interesting one, and I know it's one that the chief and the police department has embraced, and the co-responder program as well. I think that those are two creative ways to approach it. The other is that we need more police officers. We need more police officers to be out there to be able to do their jobs.
Betsy Peters, same question to you. Your thoughts about the crime in Columbia, and how do we improve public safety?
Well, I think actually crime is down, like murders and things like that. I'm not sure the petty crime is down. I'm not sure that the going through I don't really want to call it petty crime, because if you've gone through my car, I'm pretty annoyed. If you've stolen things out of my front yard or whatever. So that's a problem. But I think we need to support our neighborhood associations for one thing. The neighborhood watch folks are doing a good job. The community policing I know that at one point, we had those 4 areas of town where we were focusing more on getting people to know each other in their neighborhoods and what help did they need, because those were the neighborhoods that we were seeing more crime in, which is annoying for the police officers, if nothing else, because they're having to spend more time there than they need to. So if we could get back to that, community policing is a wonderful idea, but we need 40 or 50 more officers probably to do that. So I'm not sure how, reasonable that is, but if we could do that in those select areas, that would be quite helpful. And the co-responder model would be great, because our police officers have a whole different schedule and a way of doing things than the people that need to follow up on those that are mentally ill or have, other issues.
You want to define co-responder? I think you just started to right there, but that is to have someone who is an expert in dealing with those who might be struggling with a mental issue.
Right, exactly. And follow up with that, because that's what I think our police officers have an issue with, because they're doing set schedules of time. They can't follow up 12 hours later when they're off shift with someone, so we need our co-responders to say, did this person get help? How's this person doing? What, are they going to be out on the street? We don't need them on the street. What do we need to do? So that's, I think, what the co-responders are good at, is that they are able to deal with people with more mental illnesses and substance abuse.
A few budgets ago, wasn't there money passed to hire those, but there haven't been those who have stepped up to be qualified for the job?
That would be correct. So then the question once again becomes, are we not spending enough money, or, have we not, can they make, have a better salary somewhere else? But that's where Burrell comes in. And they have a co-responder model that I believe we're starting to use with the city and police officers.
Robert Schreiber, the question, I'll go back to the original one. Your thoughts about crime in Columbia and how would you improve public safety?
Well, I agree with the co-responder model, but I also know from talking to the police that, they created a program that has some funding, but really have not employed anybody so far. So I think we need to reach out and work with all the universities that we have in this town that are producing mental health professionals, and try to see if we can get them in to fill some of these positions. Like Betsy was saying, violent crime, I believe, is down something like 20%, which is good. But then we have the issue of petty crimes or trespassing. And what I hear a lot from the police is they don't like dealing with these trespassing crimes, and most of it is, from what I hear, is the homeless population. They're out there on the streets and they get lots of calls about homeless people being in backyards and possibly stealing things. But we need to figure out how to address the homeless population, and that will also address some of this crime problem. But I believe, there are solutions to this, and I think we just need to work with the police and mental health professionals and some of the institutions that we're building right now. The VFW room at the end is doing some good work with having beds to keep these people safe at night.
We're going to talk about the unhoused in a upcoming question. But before we do that, Betsy Peters, first on this, what do you think the role? I'm sorry.
No, never mind. You're right. I thought you missed Lisa, but you hadn't. She started.
I hope that.
Never mind. I'm not in charge of this. I'll try and remember that.
I for sure don't want to trade places with you.
Are we committed to the 30 minutes after, the 30 seconds?
If you want to follow up.
Yes. I was just thinking, I had a very interesting conversation with a counselor, a cognitive therapist who works with a particular population of transitioning people from who are released from jail into better living. And the individual had a very interesting perspective about the co-responders program, about a peer-to-peer program. And I thought that was really quite fascinating. And so that's something else that I think that we need to look into.
Anybody else?
We have that, I think. And I, of course, can't remember the name of it. I want to say Into Action, but that's, I'm sure, right, totally wrong. But there is it is like a peer-to-peer. And they're doing a really good job of like keeping people from going back to prison and, and moving them forward. And I can't remember any.
Right, but
their
using
names right
that
now.
team to help with the police officers who are
Oh.
going on calls.
Oh, okay.
To
Oh, yeah.
connect that with the
To connect that,
correspondent.
okay.
Yes, that's a different phase of that.
Okay.
Yes,
You're-
not to
You're
be-
right. No, it's all right.
Thank you.
Betsy Peters, what role, if any, should video surveillance have in dealing with crime?
Oh, I like video surveillance myself. Are you talking like that Fusus and that kind
Yeah,
of stuff? Any of
that's
that?
not mentioned in the question, but
Yeah.
I would say that's
Yeah.
probably what the question
Yeah,
deals
I mean,
with.
I think I don't know why people would be upset about it. Certainly downtown, I never quite understood why that was a problem. You're already downtown. So I think it would be helpful. I have no problem with it, but some of our citizens do.
Robert Schreiber, same question to you. What role should video surveillance do to help fight crime? And if you want to do Fusus, you can deal with it that way.
I'm not a fan of being video surveilled. I think if private businesses want to put up their own cameras, that's just fine. But there was a lot of issues brought up with Fusus and the access that a centrally controlled system like that and the effects that it would have on citizens. So I'm not really for a video surveillance system that we put throughout downtown. That the city does funds.
Lisa Meyer, your thought on that question about video surveillance?
I clearly need to do a little bit more homework on this, but my gut reaction is that if I know I'm on video, if there's a sign that says that video surveillance is taking place, I think I'm comfortable with that. As long as there's something that's letting me know that it's taking place. There's not an airport I go into and I don't anticipate that I'm being videoed. I've anywhere I've traveled, I've always figured if I'm on a light rail or that I'm being videoed. So I think that I would want to make sure that there is a posting that you know that you are being videoed.
Anybody else want to follow up? We're going to move to a new topic. And Robert Schreiber, you're first on this. Let's talk about affordable housing. We hear about that many times. So the city council's role, what can you do to add affordable housing here in Columbia?
Well, I think we need to build more housing, and that will add to the market, which then will create some more affordable housing. As I understand it, it's a filter down system with housing. So in the past, there was enough housing so that incoming first-time home buyers could buy up older housing. Now we see that with the lack of building that we've had in the past 5 to 10 years, that there is not that new housing on the market for first-time home buyers and upper income people to buy into. Your first-time home buyer isn't usually buying a brand new house that now costs in upwards of $300,000. They're looking more for your $120,000, $200,000 range. And with the median income of Columbia being $57,000, the most they could afford, a medium income person, would be $240,000, I believe. So I think we need to build more houses. I think we need to build sustainable houses. That was one thing that I did as a builder. And I think we need to help, the city needs to partner with local banks to help people raise their credit score, because that is one of the main things keeping first-time home buyers out of the market.
Lisa Meyer, same question to you on the question of affordable housing. What would the council be able to do there?
Well, over the years, I've attended multiple affordable housing symposiums that have been held by our city. And right now there's another study that's going on, and we're anticipating the results will be at the end of this year. I believe it's the fall of this year. What I'm wondering is if we're going to be courageous enough to actually make changes that might actually make housing more affordable. And when we talk about that, we want to talk about 2/3 of home ownership and then the other third for renting and accessibility for renting. And if we're going to be courageous, we might all have to get uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is we might have to look at zoning differently with a different lens. We might have to look at building materials differently with a different lens. There are already a lot of programs that the banks have and various not-for-profits to help people improve their credit score. My family, my parents never bought a home. I was a first-time home buyer, and I've helped so many other people. First generation from Peru, from Honduras, from Nigeria. The joy of that is incredible. And I'd like to have more opportunities. And right now we have such low inventory and we have nowhere to go. And there are so many people that want to own a home or would like to rent in a different area. And how wonderful it would be if we had those possibilities here in Columbia.
Betsy Peters, the question to you about affordable housing.
Can I just pass that question?
If you'd like.
No.
Say magic like one of the school board candidates
I
did.
like that. I came in for one of those. I think people talk about the middle housing and how we seem to be missing a lot of middle housing. We've also had conversations about zoning changes, whether we need to have mixed zoning versus nothing but duplexes in one area of town and nothing but single family homes in another, that perhaps, mixed use would be better. There are a lot of programs out there that are working on affordable housing. And I think the city council can be supportive of them working on affordable housing. The city gets into it a little bit, but we're really not home builders. So then the question is, what barriers are we putting in the way of affordable housing? Are there things we can do to decrease those barriers? Are there things we can do to be supportive of builders building affordable housing, or rehabbing things, or changing the way things are used? So we're just going to keep working on that. It's an ongoing problem, but we'll just keep working on it between ARPA funds and CDBG funds and funds, all the different funds that are out there. We just, I think, let other people do the building.
Lisa Meyer, this is going to be your question. It's related to this question, but it's broader, and it comes because the Board of Realtors knows this. And so thinking a bigger term, we're dealing with home shortages in all price ranges, not just affordable housing. How would you help create additional housing on all levels here in Columbia? What is the role of the city council in doing this?
Well, first I'd like to clarify, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Columbia Board of Realtors. That would not be my
She
proper
is
role.
not.
So I just want to make sure that that's clear. But I am speaking as a seasoned realtor, and someone said, I just wanted to clarify that because that would not be my position. There are so many different economic factors and such that take place, but I think getting out of the way is one of the best things that the city council and our city could do to help. Get out of the way.
Betsy Peters?
That works for me. I mean, we are not in the build, the area of building. So the questions are we better off, changing the zoning, let people, like I say, have more mixed zoning so that you can have different price ranges in the same area. We are looking at whether we need to be changing any of the fees that we have for building in the city. I'm not sure we'll change them, but I know we hear about it a lot, and maybe we just need to not add anymore. So, trying to be supportive, but not being the builders of choice in the community.
Robert Schreiber, your thought about that?
I think the city can help, like with the planning and zoning issues. The fees, I've heard a lot about that. I agree with not making them less, because as we heard in the previous forum, those some of those fees go to the teachers. So that is a vital part of our.
Do the fees go for that, or the property taxes?
The property taxes do
for sure, but the fees do some.
I thought that some of the
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I would like to see the city have partnerships with the builders.
Here's a question for you, and we'll start with Betsy Peters. How do you see the role of a city council member, and what would be your 3 top priorities?
Let me think on that. I think infrastructure is one of the big things. I mean, being supportive of that, of public safety, whether it's the fire department or the police department, our first responders, making the community a safe place for people to, as I think the city has the live, work, learn, and play motto, so I think the city council needs to be helpful for that. Try not to get too far afield of those sort of core issues.
Robert Schreiber, same question to you. Your vision of what you see the role is if you were a city council member, and what would be your top 3 priorities?
My top 3 priorities would be the affordable housing issue. Also infrastructure. We all want good roads, bridges, sewers, water, internet. All right, that is a given, but it is not guaranteed. And seeing those things moving forward, I want to expand them and make sure that we are also repairing our existing ones at the time, because most cities across the country, not just Columbia, the infrastructure needs a lot of work, and there's a lot that goes into that. My 3rd issue would be public transportation. I want to expand public transportation and bring it at least back to where it used to be. But it's a vital resource that helps people in the community get to their jobs. I mean, it is especially low income people in the community that do not have vehicles. That's how they get to and from work. And it helps reduce traffic congestion and pollution, air pollution.
Lisa Meyer, how do you see your role as a city council member if elected, and what would be your top 3 priorities?
So my top 3 priorities are safety, infrastructure, health, and well-being. But I have another priority. I'm just curious, could you guess what percentage of people participate in April elections? It's low. It's less than 14%. So I have a goal to get more participation with voting and participation with local government. It's concerning to me how many different citizens, when I'm asking the question, what matters to them, that they're sharing their concerns, but they feel a disconnect between what's going on at City Hall and in their homes. And it's my hope to warm that up a bit. I want to start to meet with people, have regular meetings where I'm getting together with people, and I'm still, if I'm elected, I will still be listening, taking notes, and getting people involved.
I'm curious, and I think I can ask this question and get a response from the 2 candidates who have not served on the council, but from the incumbent. When you are contacted by people, and they're going to be in your ward, I would guess, but anybody in the city could contact you. What are the top 2 or 3 categories that they are most concerned about and want your attention on?
When you had originally asked that question, that I thought, all of these questions are all about policy and what we should do, as the city council. But when you really think about it, it takes at least 4 votes, on city council. The calls I've gotten so far this week, none of them have been from my ward. One was about trash not being collected and how she's going to sue the city for that, or she wants money back. But we talked through it, and we got the trash picked up on her whole street, and I'm actually going to check tomorrow and make sure it's gotten picked up. But people will just call and they'll just ask for something, or they want you to call them, and then you call them and you discover they're not even in your ward. But they've got concerns, so you can take care of it. And what our advantage is that we can then email the city manager or the public works department, or both, because the city manager always wants to know what's going on, and say, could you check what's going on the street? This is the address. You can get the address from whoever you speak to, and you can work that out. Or like I said, tonight's was the roll carts. There's 4 roll carts that are sitting in a parking spot across from my house, and there should only be 3, and this is going to be a disaster. And I'm like, okay, so we'll work on that. So it's really it's the day-to-day things that people really need help with, or the potholes that need to be filled, or stuff like that. So it's interesting. Or The porta potty, I heard that the other day. The porta potty left. What happened to that porta potty? And I'm thinking, this is what I do on city council. Email the city manager. What happened to that porta potty over there that people used to use? So, it's always interesting.
So I appreciate that answer. And that leads me to ask the two candidates, and we'll start with Robert Schreiber. How would you deal with that? What is your personality makeup that you've just heard a sitting council member who's been there almost a decade deal with these kinds of issues? How would you anticipate doing that?
My general personality is to, if I see a problem, I try to fix it. I mean, that has been my job for 20 years and currently is now. I fix things. So if someone called me up that wasn't even in my ward, I would probably do the same thing. I would try to solve the problem as best I could, because they are a citizen in the city at large. So yeah, I like to fix things.
Lisa Meyer, same question to you. You have a tolerance for those kinds of interruptions and those kinds of questions that you're maybe thinking, I wasn't expecting this one.
Oh, absolutely. Real estate has absolutely made me prepared for just about anything that can happen at any time. And those of us who work in the industry know, as soon as we think something's happened, there's an issue on an inspection or something, and we're prepared to respond. Regarding the service, yes. And I think having excellent relationships with different departments at city staff is certainly very helpful. I actually have a client situation that happened. He had it was an abandoned vehicle on his street, and he was just really, really tired of seeing it. And he contacted me and said, okay, I've seen this. This is just here. There aren't the tags. How come nobody's doing anything about it? And I said, well, we need to be proactive. Okay. There's a 311 number. And then I'm also going to introduce you to, and it was the office of the ONS department. And I connected him by email, and lo and behold, everything got fixed within a week. And that was pretty cool. So it's all about connecting people and then following through.
That person in Ward 6?
No,
I'm kidding. It's
but I think the only thing I would do differently there would be polite to my fellow council members, would be to make sure that they're CC'd and in the loop. Because I think some people are just reaching out for help, and I wouldn't want to, overstep a relationship without making sure that they knew that it was helping out.
Robert Schreiber, this one goes to you. How should the city be handling the unhoused in our community?
That is a big one. Well, we already have programs, like I mentioned, Room at the Inn, that I believe they have 90 beds, 100 beds. And then there is a volunteer action center that is going up down the street from that in the coming years. That is going to have probably 120 beds. So that is a start. And just to let everybody know, I lived on Stone Street for 13 years, which is right there by the power plant, right there by Room at the Inn, and right down the street from where the Voluntary Action Center would be. I watched over the years that corridor along I-70. I watched that become more and more people started showing up there, and it was a small camp. Now it's a large camp. And I used to watch people walk around and deal with their mental health issues and their addiction issues, and have my neighbors say, hey, I think things are being stolen out of my backyard. And I think we need to deal with this with compassion, because these are people that have fallen through the cracks, and we need to lift them up, get them the help they need. But the most important thing we can do is keep people from falling through the cracks. And that looks like, helping people that are just on the edge make that month's rent, because the lower income people in this community everyone's just a bad medical bill or a bad car bill away sometimes from being out on the street. Thank you.
Lisa Meyer, question to you. How should the city be handling the unhoused in our community?
Well, we have a lot in progress right now, and I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm very hopeful that the people who need help will want help. I've talked to a lot of cognitive therapists, people who deal with substance and addiction and mental health on a regular basis. And I've learned a lot. And I'm hopeful, I'm very hopeful that we're heading in the right direction to help people. But the toughest thing is people have to want the help. And anybody in here who's ever dealt with somebody with addiction, you know how difficult that is. And we need to be compassionate and not enabling.
Betsy Peters, what's your read on how the city is handling the unhoused in our community?
Well, hopefully we're getting a little better at it. If nothing else, we have more resources available. This year, we've heard very few times that people shown up to yell at the city and the city council for not doing anything about the homeless. So I'm thinking that means we're actually starting to see this turn the corner. We do need to see if we can keep people from falling through the cracks or becoming unhoused. So you're exactly right. If it's some way that we can help keep them where they're already housed, that's a lovely start. If we can't, then we need to have that whole group of people, not just like, we don't just need homeless. I mean, I've talked to the Voluntary Action Center. I'm like, well, those cots are great, but once you fill them up, what are you going to do with these people? Right. They need to be moved on to transitional housing or affordable housing, or they need to move back where they came from. If it's something where they just need a ride back to Avaz. I mean, there was one guy at room at the end. He just somehow or another ended up in Columbia. He didn't have a ride back to Avaz. Well, he's got a home in Avaz. Let's get him back to Avaz. We can do this, So, we need that whole spectrum of services. And then you're right. They need to want to be helped. But I feel like we're at least starting to move down that path.
This is related, and Lisa Meyer, you will start on this. Should the city continue to clean out camps on public property? And then what are your thoughts about doing so on private property?
It's my understanding there's a firm process with private property. Am I incorrect about that? There's like quite a period of time. That's an ONS question.
Yeah, it is an ONS question.
Yes, so I believe, and I would like to have my facts to be 100%, so please know I'm not 100% on this, but I do believe that there is a process that takes place if it is private property, where they have to give notice, and then there's a period of time for notice. And then I believe that both the private property, I think that the person is required to pay a percentage, if not a good portion of it. Regarding public land, yes, it's our responsibility to make sure of it. Okay, all of it. Thank you for that clarification. Yes. So, and then I believe with the public land, yes, we should be keeping it free.
Betsy Peters, same question.
That's another one of those difficult things. The private property, if they're a nuisance or they're a health problem, the private people are supposed to be cleaning that up. And what you run into lots of times is there's like a public access and then private land. And so you end up with this sort of weird thing where the city goes in and cleans up under the electric lines, but then they don't do the rest of it because that's private. So I try and just listen to that. We do give a lot of notice. It's sort of surprising because people are like, oh, they just cleaned out a camp. But, the city has spent probably 6 weeks to 2 months saying, you guys, we're going to clean this camp out. And where can we, how can we help you find some other place to stay? It's really a health problem because they don't have any sanitary, they have no bathrooms, they've got no showers. They're either dumping stuff into the creek or they're just living amongst, piles of trash. And so it's a real health problem. So I do think we need to clean it out. But again, it would be helpful if we could find other places to send them and if we could help them move on to a little more secure housing.
Robert Schreiber.
I agree that we need to keep our public lands public, and that the private people that allow homeless camps to be on their land, it is a health problem. But once again, we have to look at this in a sustainable, holistic fashion. Where, why are these people here? And if we clear them out of a spot, where are they going to go? What they're just going to. Are they going to move out of the city? Are they going to move to, 2 miles down the road? And another thing is we need to address how many people are homeless in the city? That is one thing I have heard numbers of 280. That coupled with what the school board has said with children that are homeless. So if we know a child is homeless and going to school, then there's probably a parent along there too. So that's 2 people. So I think the numbers are in upwards of 500-600. I think it's vastly low. So first we have to measure how many people we're dealing with, because you can't fix what you can't measure.
I'm going to ask a follow-up. You don't have to give a long answer to this, but and Betsy Peters, we'll start with you. So what thoughts do you have about those who don't have homes and are not interested in going to room at the inn or anywhere else? It is not unique to our community. Every community of size deals with the same. And I struggle with this. What thoughts have you given to this?
Well, we've had conversations both. Actually, I was talking to Janet Thompson last week about this. We've discussed having like sanctioned camps or some type of camps. I mean, a lot of people, they don't want the rules and they don't want to follow any rules, but they really do need like just shelter. And so there are sanctioned camps around the country that are run not by the city, but by, usually the city ends up funding them, but somebody else has to run them. That allow people some shelter and some place to keep their belongings. It doesn't usually involve a kitchen. There's usually like public toilets, so to speak, toilets for maybe 10 or 15 of the homes. They're usually for single people. There are some rules involved. Some of them can take animals. So we've sort of discussed what we can do. We're sort of questionable how much you want to do, because, people will say you're attracting homeless. And I'm not sure if that's really true, but we sure don't want to attract anybody else, but we would like to take care of the homeless that we have here. And some people just are not going to follow the rules. But it would be nice if they weren't panhandling all over the place or, threatening the businesses that do call and say, there's homeless guys outside and my customers don't want to come in. So it's a problem.
Robert Schreiber, I'm not asking for you to solve the world's problem on this right now, but what thoughts have you given to this issue of those who are without homes, but they seem to be content with that?
Well, we are not going to let people die in the street or freeze to death in the woods. I mean, I would hope that is something. I'd like to look at what other cities around the country are doing about this problem. Salt Lake City in particular, Atlanta, they are having some great success. And I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I think we need to tailor what other people have found to work for our city.
Lisa Meyer, same question to you. What thought have you given to this?
It's so sad because you want people to want the help. And you're here with open arms saying, who hasn't been approached? I remember one person coming up and panhandling, and I asked her what she was going to do with the money. And she said that she was going to get a room, like a hotel. And I said, how about if I pay for the room? And she said, no. Okay. And backed up. We've all been approached in different ways. It's a tough one. I know that there's some interesting things happening in Oakland, California. I know that there's some interesting things happening in Austin, Texas. Those are 2 very different environments than what we have here with our 4 seasons. So the truth is, I don't know. I would have to ask, I would consult with different cognitive therapists who are working with folks in behavioral therapy. And what do you do? I don't know.
I will say Springfield has sanctioned camps. Des Moines, Iowa does. Tulsa. So we have been, you're right, exactly the 4-season thing. So people have been looking at that. Probably the housing department that we've just developed at the city, Office of Neighborhood Services. But you're right. We need to look at the 4 seasons, but we are looking at that. Not as large of towns as Atlanta and that, but you're right. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel.
We'll move to another topic. And Robert Schreiber, you're first on this. We're talking about board and commissions that the city has. You've put yourself on the ballot to be elected possibly as a council member, so you are showing your interest there. But how can the city attract more qualified people to those boards and commissions?
Well, we have a wealth of knowledge in our universities and colleges in this city. I think we should start looking there for one. There are people that study all the things that the boards and commissions do at these universities and colleges. And we have a huge population of students and possibly future residents that stay in this town that would probably like to be on those boards and commissions.
Lisa Meyer, same question to you. How do you get people to want to be involved as serving on a board or commission?
Well, we have a fast growing population of 65 and over. Really seasoned, wise people that would be fantastic on a variety of different boards that we could all learn from. And I think something that we need to look at is a different time of day to meet. I think some of them need to look at the time that they're meeting and where they're meeting and see what they can do to attract more of our 65 plus and get them involved. We've got a lot of retired professors, professionals. It'd be fantastic to get some of their wisdom on the boards, commissions.
Betsy Peters, I'm curious, first of all, do you think that this is an issue? And if it is, what is your solution?
Ask people to serve. That's what I've found to be helpful. If is to just really call people up and say, hey, there's an opening on this commission, and we're trying to find somebody to fill it. And the most recent one I think of is the Citizens Police Review Board. We really needed to get people on there that are not pro-police or anti-police, but that, will be able to thoughtfully look at things. And so you just really need to know folks in your ward and just sort of network with folks and ask people to serve. A lot of people will do it if you ask. But they either haven't bothered to check out the boards and commissions, they haven't thought of it. Lots of people just haven't really thought about it. So some of it's just talking to people and seeing if they'd be willing to serve, and then making the boards and commissions useful. Sometimes you show up and you think, well, I just spent an hour. What was I doing here? So, it needs to be.
Have you heard that frustration from boards and commission members that maybe they've met and then what they've sent as their opinion or ideas to the council didn't make any difference?
Or you can't get enough folks at a commission meeting to actually have an official meeting, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Lisa Meyer, Ward 2, I'd like for you to do a little bit of a definition of that ward as you see it, and then how would you promote economic growth in that ward?
Yes. So we have really, I'll just summarize it. We've got the north side of Ward 2 and we've got the south side of Ward 2. And one of the things that we could use some economic development on the north side is a lot of people would like to see a grocery store and a pharmacy. We're not technically a food desert, but you really do have to go quite a ways to get to a grocery store. So that would be on the north side, okay? And then on the south side, they have a fair amount of grocery stores and such. But I'd like to the point about transportation, I have found it very interesting how many people of a particular age group really don't want to drive anymore, and connecting them to the resources to help them get around. Did that answer your question? I think I'm finished.
Seems to me that you've answered the question.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
When you talk north side, what are the boundaries east and west?
Well, you go up to close about Oakland, all right, and then you take it all the way to past Stadium. Then you've got Garden. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the subdivision right now. Then you go across. Then you've got Columbia Mall, and then you've got Park DeVille and part of Paxton Keeley and the condo development back there. Yes.
Betsy Peters, how do you kind of describe your Ward 6, and what about economic growth there that you can help to encourage or maybe bring about?
Well, my ward starts at the southeast corner of Broadway and College. So it takes about half of Stevens College in, all of the East Campus. It goes down south on College, sort of jots over to just almost to Stadium, but it goes sort of south of Stadium and on Providence. So and then the southeast part, pretty much. Although it does include Old Hawthorne, which is north of Broadway. So it's just sort of that southeast part of the city. We have Lamone Boulevard as far as economic development. We've got some hotels down there on AC and 63. Other than that, it's really pretty much residential. I haven't heard any complaints about a food desert, but there probably is, except most folks in my ward, I believe, have cars, simply because of where they live. It includes Discovery Parkway and that whole area down there, Gans Creek, and the cross-country course on the sports field house. So it's really more of the residential area. So I have the poor students, and then I've got the folks that live in Discovery and Old Hawthorne.
Robert Schreiber, how you define Ward 2, and then what would you encourage as far as economic growth there?
I see Ward 2 as being a lot of working class families and people, as well as some lower income areas. There's quite a few trailer parks just around my house. And I've talked to those people, and they, going back to the public transportation, a lot of them don't have transportation or don't want to drive, and they would like public transportation to the different grocery stores, pharmacies, and to access all the things that they need. I think getting with developers to build some more business complexes that can be occupied by the businesses, because right now I'm seeing that there's a lot of them are full. I mean, we have a row of restaurants up on Rangeline, and that's kind of a hotbed of restaurants. And then you go over to Parkade area, and that's mostly residential. And like Lisa was saying, it swoops down here and hits the mall area. So that's a pretty already economically vibrant area. But I think we could expand a little bit farther north up on Rangeline to get some businesses up in there, because now it's becoming a highly trafficked area.
Anybody want to follow up anything? Betsy Peters, you're first on this one, and that's good because you can speak as to what has been the most recent development in short-term rental decisions that have gone on almost as long as roll cart decisions. So your thought about the status of that right now, and set the foundation for us, and then we'll move into the candidates that have a contested race.
Well, we've talked about short-term rentals, as you say, for a long time. Planning and zoning has brought one iteration to the council to regulate short-term rentals maybe 2 years ago. And it was very complicated and almost impossible to understand. So we asked them to go back and take another look at it. So they have done that, and they have taken a long look at it, and they've had, a lot of public comment, and have really, once again, delved into it. It is back on the city council agenda. It was a first read, I believe, at the last meeting. So I think it's coming up on Monday night for discussion, and potentially a vote, or amendments and a vote, or amendments and tabling. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's about as good as it's going to get. I don't think the city council will send it back again to planning and zoning. I'm not sure they would accept it again. I think they'd tell us to make a decision and move on. It'll show up. I'm sure we'll have a public hearing. It'll be robust and interesting. I'm not sure if we'll be making any changes or not. I do think we need to do some regulation. Right now, they're all illegal, including the one I have. So it'd be nice if they all became legal, so that we actually could know what we needed to do to comply with the city standards. So we'll see what happens.
I do think it's kind of an in-depth, it's complicated, but Robert Schreiber, you're next on this. Just your general thoughts about short-term rentals, their regulation or not regulation. Where do you come down on that broader topic?
it is a hot button issue. Short-term rentals, from my understanding, there is about 400 of them that roughly that are in the city. And what I see with short-term rentals is I think they do need to be regulated, because every short-term rental that is out there, that is taking a possible family home off the market, okay, or a possible single family home off the market so that someone can rent it out for a MU game or other sporting event or whatever is going on in the great city of Columbia. But I think it does need to be regulated, and we can have some short-term rentals, but it becomes a problem when you have someone that owns a lot of different properties and then just does all of them short-term rentals because they know they can make more money at it. They can make what they would get in a month in a weekend. Okay. So I think there does need to be regulations on that, and I think it affects the housing market at large.
Lisa Meyer, your thought on short-term rentals?
Well, I don't have any short-term rentals. I do know that to have them, it creates more maintenance and cost because of turning over the property. So the thought that they're just automatic, big money makers, it could be argued that it's actually better to have your property leased for a year, where you're not having to pay for people to go in and clean and deal with turning over the property and such so quickly. I think that I lean towards a conservative perspective, meaning I'm okay with modest regulation when it comes to honoring our ordinances that we already have. We've got noise ordinances. You don't want people having big parties next door. That's not how the property was supposed to be used. I also think that we had made some suggestions where if it's 30 days or less, isn't there like some rule in there where you're not going to be regulated, right?
There's lots of rules and I can't address any of them.
Right. I feel like
120 days, 150 days, maybe less than 30 days.
Right.
I don't.
And then there's supposed to be
I'd
a
have
rule
to read
too
it.
if it's in your home. So, because I do have a woman who was able to pay for her child's education because she rented out her basement, and it worked out beautifully for her. So I think that we need to think big picture, that this is also a mom and pop opportunity to have some additional income. It's also an opportunity if you're going to have short-term rentals for possibly helping some people in transition with their housing needs. And I think it's important when we talk about a housing shortage, if you've got somebody with a big heart and they're connected with an organization, they might be able to help somebody. And I do know some folks who have helped with transitions.
Robert Schreiber, the question to you: what have you done and what are you doing to prepare yourself to serve as a city council member?
I am meeting with lots of different groups. I am studying every night to try to get up on the issues that the city council is working with. I watched video of this very forum before I came here to try to get an idea about what questions you might be asking. But yeah, I am talking to people all over the city, different unions, and studying every night to try to come up with ways that I see I can help the city.
Lisa Meyer, same question to you. What are you doing or what have you done to prepare yourself for a council seat?
Well, I read through the 600 and something page budget and made some notes. The next thing I want to do is really get a full and better understanding of the cash flow reports. And I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but I think that will be helpful to help me have an overall big picture of what's happening financially. And in addition to that, I'm having a lot of coffees, meeting with people in the ward, not just going door to door, but sitting at their kitchen table or meeting them for coffee. And I'm asking them what are their concerns, and I am taking notes, lots of notes, and that's it.
Betsy Peters, I'm going to change the question just a bit. What do you keep doing to be prepared to be a city council member? And as you look back to where you might have been several years ago, where These two are, what do you wish that you knew then that you know now?
I know now. You know, for me, I'm trying to crack the neighborhood association meetings. This year, I got through some of them last year, and I'm trying to get to more this year because it's an opportunity to meet the entire neighborhood. I mean, I might just say hello, and if you have questions, I'm at the back of the room when the meeting's over because I don't really want to drag out neighborhood association meetings or homeowners association meetings, but just trying to get out and talking to more people to see. I mean, what I get are emails that people have complaints or concerns or issues or whatever, or phone calls, whatever. And so, you know, you take care of those. I think the pre-council meetings are quite interesting. And so if you guys have a chance to come to those, when you talk about budgets, I know we should hear something soon, I hope, about the upcoming capital improvement tax that we're going to be asking people, I think, to continue. You know, we have a 10-year tax and capital improvements that we've done. So I'm like, could we get a list of what we asked people to, you know, what we told people we were going to do 10 years ago? Which ones have we done? How much money have we spent? What are, you know, we have some ongoing projects that will continue through this capital improvement round, which is another year and a half. But then what are we going to be doing in the future? You know, the pre-council meetings are where it's a workshop pretty much, and we just get reports from the staff. But it's quite helpful, and it keeps you from having to read the entire budget, which God bless you for doing that. Let me tell you.
It took a couple days.
Any questions from the audience? I want to make sure that I give people an opportunity. If they have a question, you can speak loudly from your seat. If you want to stand up, and be patient because I'll need to repeat it in all likelihood for those who are watching us remotely. Yes, ma'am.
I've been to a few city council meetings, and when the public gets up and speaks, I don't get the impression that the council cares one iota. You got them on their phones, they're looking the other way, getting up and going to the bathroom. And I'm thinking, do they discuss this afterwards? Do they ever discuss the public opinion?
So the question is for the council member now, Betsy Peters, and the question is that the questioner has been to city council meetings, and when the public gets up for public comments, she says council members don't pay attention.
Well, I guess maybe.
Oh, if you do pay attention.
You know, I would say we just had actually a discussion about this yesterday. You know, like if I have to go to the bathroom, I never do it during public comment because I want to hear what citizens have to say. So I might do it while the staff is giving a report because I've already read that report. I mean, they have a 2-page memo they give us. So if I have to go that's when I go. Never during public comment because I want to hear what people have to say. Okay. And I try not to be on the phone. I mean, I want to know what people, I mean, they only have 3 minutes or maybe 5, depending on who it is. So what is it that they're concerned about or what are they saying? So I don't know. I'd have to ask the rest of the council. As far as discussing stuff afterwards, yeah, for sure. Although remember, we have to do it in small groups because we can't have more than 4 people in one place or it's considered a public meeting and we have to, you know, sunshine law. But we do, you know, we will discuss something later. I didn't realize that, or, you know, we had a woman who was quite upset about Whitegate stuff one night and when Mayor Treese was still there. So I think she talked for 10 minutes one night and he did not stop her. It was the end of the meeting. It was midnight. God bless that woman. She sat there for 5 hours to tell us that we needed to improve lighting and this, that, and the other. But then we did discuss it later. Actually, we asked the city manager to address it and he said he would the next day and he did.
Guess we could ask the candidates if they would make a pledge here tonight that they would pretend to pay attention during those.
Yeah. We're good with that.
Both would say yes. Okay. No, you don't need to, just as long as I can hear so I can repeat it.
There's been 40 that have left. And a lot of times when they are, you know, we just had a detective who went and spoke in front of city council and said that how the disparaging comments really drive down their spirit. and they feel attacked emotionally all the time because there's a group that always comes and they always say the worst about the police. And so, and there's not a way to have a neutral party explain any sort of balanced perspective as far as, well, here's the rest of the story that this person did not say. And so, as city council people, how can we keep the police trained to the best of their ability to do the job the way that it should be done, but then also support the police and also hear when there are valid critiquing, that needs to be done so that there's a holistic balanced approach, because we want the best police, but we don't want, all of our people to leave so that the whole city's in danger. So what can we do?
Let's start with Lisa Meyer. So the question is supporting the police while at the same time holding them accountable. Is that kind of a real simple summary of this?
Well, the way to support them is to give them the resources and the funds that they need to be able to hire and retain. I think we talked, some of this is going to recap on some of the things, so I don't want to go and repeat things. But a part that I heard of your question and is the negativity that is often presented at council meetings. And I think the best thing that could happen would be to have more people stepping up with positivity and getting more engaged.
Betsy Peters?
Well, I agree with paying them adequately or well, whatever. So like I say, we've just increased that, and I think that's helping Chief Schluty recruit new people and hopefully hang on to the old people. And that's maybe old is the wrong word, our experienced people. As far as not being negative, I know, it's a hard balance. I mean, if people want to get up and complain at city council meetings, that's a problem, but it's a public hearing, and they have the right to speak. Lots of times we'll just say, can you look into this to the city manager? You don't really want to get in a fight with them, or just say, well, we're going to wait and see what, see what comes out of whatever if there's some report or some evaluation of what police officers have done. I mean, there's this whole protocol that they go through if there's a question. So we need to let that play out before we make any decisions. We don't know. I mean, that's what that whole protocol is to look at the video cameras and to get the information. So you need to let that play out before you have an opinion on it.
Robert Schreiber, so how do we support the police while at the same time allowing them to hear citizens' concerns about them?
Well, I think funding the police and all of our safety services is paramount. We have to retain the good police that we have, and so that we have that institutional knowledge and knowledge of the community that goes a long way in helping relations between police and citizens. I liked your idea about or expanding the police review board with people that are not one side or the other, but that can just speak to what the issues are. And of course, citizens can voice their opinions like in any other council meeting.
So this could be considered a follow-up to David's question about cleaning up the homes, campus, et cetera. I think a couple of weeks ago, the council just awarded a contract to Como Mobile Aid Collective to sort of do a community outreach, that's kind of the mobile version of something like Turning Point. And frequently Como Mobile Aid will go into these kids and will provide food, medical care, and along with that, the other organizations provide food, water, shelter, everything for human existence except sanitation. And I'm just like, I don't get this. I mean, we have garbage pickup in front of our home. We spent the last 3 years or 3 decades making roll calls. Sanitation is the most basic thing, and to have these nurses going into these camps to make sure people don't get frostbite or make sure their wounds are covered and not be able to back that up with some sanitation. Just, I don't understand it. And my question is, why not contract for sanitation on private property too? I'd be okay if my tax dollars were going to help Royce Palmer over here at Columbia Appliance clean that huge mess up in back of his place. I'd be totally okay. I mean, we can send people to the moon. Elon Musk wants to send people to Mars, but we can't clean up homeless camps. This is crazy. So that's my question. Could the city council contract with sanitation of human services for homeless?
All right, so I'll repeat this. The question deals with much is provided for the unhoused population, but we seem to ignore the fact that they need sanitation. And let's see, I believe it is Betsy Peters first up on this, is it not?
I think it's Lisa, but I'm okay with that. I like how I'm passing the
You know
buck
what?
here.
I think you might be right, but go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll let you start.
That's a good point. And I'm not sure why we don't do it, but I can certainly ask. I mean, if it's picking up trash, that's one thing. Like if we're talking dumpsters. If it's providing like public toilets and sewers are a big deal. But if it's mainly trash, I guess if we contracted with a private entity, but I'm not sure who pays for that then. Although, as you pointed out, you're okay with your tax dollars paying for it. So, yeah. So, it's a thought. And I think probably working with Como Mobile Aid is a good idea because they seem to know where most of the camps are. At least that's my understanding.
Robert Schreiber, the question points out a gap here in the service for the unhoused. What's your thought?
Well, yes, I believe that we should have sanitation in these camps. The problem is that if you're going to one day have sanitation and all these services in the camps, and then the next day go in and clear them out, then what are we doing then?
Mm-hmm.
We need long-term solutions for these problems. But yeah, we need to keep the areas clean, keep people clean, keep them healthy. But if we're just going to go in the next day and toss them off where they've been living, I just don't see a long-term solution here. But I like the idea about you paying more taxes and we can try to solve this.
I think that's exactly what he said.
He didn't say he wanted to pay more, but that's okay. Lisa Meyer, your answer to this problem in question.
Well, there are so many layers of issues connected with helping people who either want to be helped or don't want to be helped, and the cleaning up. And I've helped with some of these litter pickups, and whoa, are they some jobs, big time. So I'm not exactly sure on the private property side if that would actually be a public, a public
use of, right, yeah.
responsibility and use of dollars. But on the public side, it's an excellent question. And it seems like there should be something to even help us make the cleanup easier, but I'm not sure what. So I don't have the answer, but I would want to ask people who are experienced, and we've put a lot of money into unsheltered. That seems like something that we should be able to figure out.
As a follow-up to that, I do remember talking to Mr. Seawood about this. I think the last time they cleaned up one of the homeless camps north of Home Depot, and they couldn't get in there to get the trash out. That was part of the problem, is that there are no roads to where the homeless were staying. And so it was, you couldn't access it. Because I remember saying, just talking about it, these same questions, they always keep coming up because, you want to be compassionate, but it's a public health problem. And I believe he was like, we're having a lot of trouble getting in there. We can't get in there to clean stuff up, or we're having to
do clearing with them.
They have to clear,
You do.
to get in there. I mean, they do a pretty good job of trying to be,
We've got time maybe for one and maybe two, but yes.
I want to say the R are for the
Sorry.
Started when recycling was running and in dealing with the condominium association that I'm affiliated with, which is also in Ward 2. It's been costing us $500 to $700 a month to haul away contraband and to lock dumpsters because people are just leaving it free, and then you have the streets that run off. But we know just behind that that some well-meaning homeowner, somebody gave a trailer to some homeless people to live in, and then we spraying them off of our private property. They have their debris behind, so then the debris began filled up there. But it brings up a problem with roll carts. People don't know that they can't overfill them and it won't be taken away. So what is the city going to do about the extra dumping that's going to continue to occur? People are just dumping stuff. It's not just homeless. But the private property owners or the condominium owners are going to have to continue to pay to haul away their own stuff.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be something that crash law and violations of those, because it's been exponential in the last year. What we have to do.
So the question deals with something that might become more of an issue because roll carts, which are being distributed now, are, you've got to be able to close the lid, can't pile stuff around the outside of them, but some people will. If they don't want to do that, they may take them to a condominium or an apartment complex and just dump their excess there. Lisa Meyer, I'm going to get to start with you this time, and you can tell us your thoughts from a council position, what to do with that.
One question that I would have for our utilities administrator is how come we can't put trash on top, because they could in Platte City and other places that I've lived that have roll carts. So that's one question that I have, because I have seen roll carts work, and I've seen when you have too much that you can put your trash bag on the top or on the side and they will take it. So that's a question that I have and I don't know the answer to. I am also concerned, a piece of that is this, go from trash and let's just go to litter. Our city has so much litter. I mean, so much litter. And on occasion, a couple of Ward 2 people will mention it and they're like, my heart is happy, because I'm like, oh, good, I'm not alone. We have so much litter. If you just go down right now, I think it's on Range Line, 2 trash bags are just right there in the middle of the median. So it will be up to volunteers. We have like about 300 volunteers in Columbia through the volunteer department that go out and pick up litter all the time. It'd be really fantastic if we could get an answer to that, as well as if we could do something to actually have litter be enforced. I mean, people just throw stuff out the window. It's happened. There's a volunteer who was picking up litter who had somebody at a stop sign just throw the litter out. Like, yeah, add this to your bunch. It's real.
Betsy Peters, your thought on this issue?
Well, I'm still going to go with that. We need to get roll carts out and running and see how that works. But it's not going to take care of the mattresses or the broken furniture and the but I don't have an answer for that. I mean, at the moment, you know, for a while the city picked up anything you put on the curb, and the problem with that was they picked up anything you put on the curb, and it was sort of out of control. Also, I don't have a good answer for people that aren't responsible. You know, that don't. You get one free pickup a year, I think it is. So if they would just put it out on the curb and call, then that would be fine. That would be responsible. But obviously, these are not responsible people. I don't have a good answer. I can tell you, we had a couch that went down a ravine over in my neighborhood, and the city said they couldn't do anything about it. So my neighbor went down and dug through it and found the receipt and the guy's name, and called him and told him to come and pick up his couch. And he did, actually. So I don't think that's going to work regularly, but it was sort of a nice story for our neighborhood anyway.
Robert Schreiber, last word on this.
With roll carts, there is a learning curve. There are people that want them to work. There are people that don't want them to work. So I think the longer that we have them, the more it's going to work, because it works in other cities. We know this. I used to live in St. Louis. I used to go to St. Louis during the summertime to see my dad, and we had roll carts there. Ashland, where I grew up, it has roll carts now. Cities can make this transition, and I think Columbia will. And the people, because you're allowed the different sizes, and people are, as it goes on, people will figure out which size they need, and I think that will help with that. As far as your question about the hotbeds of trash dumping, maybe the city could put some roll-offs there that would help with that. I don't know if they could do it for free. Maybe they could do some. I mean, at the apartment complex that I work at, Terra, we have 2 roll-offs that are there year-round, because we have 2 different big seasons. One when students move out in the summertime, and one right before Christmas. And those things fill up. If we didn't have those there, then yeah, I would be moving couches. I still have to move all the couches, but at least they're there for me to put them in.
We're out of time. No more questions. I'm going to predict that there will be other candidate forums before the election in April. So you will have an opportunity, if you didn't get your questions asked then, to ask them. Final 60 seconds for each of you. Lisa Meyer, we'll start with you. How would you like to end your comments to this group tonight?
Well, I would like to thank everybody for staying so late and for listening and participating. And my core issues are safety, infrastructure, health, and well-being. And I hope to earn your vote on April the 2nd.
All right. Betsy Peters, your final comment tonight.
I appreciate being invited to this forum. I've been disinvited to some because, no one's running against me. And I'm very happy for that. I look forward to the opportunity to represent the 6th Ward and continue to hopefully work to make Columbia a great place to live.
Robert Schreiber?
Yeah, I am just happy everybody came out, stayed so late again. My core issues are affordable housing, infrastructure, and public transportation. And I hope to see everybody get out to the polls on April 2nd.
Wow. Quick final statements. I will echo what was said. Thank you all for being here and for participating. Thank you, 3 candidates, for being here. Thank you to the Board of Realtors for sponsoring this first forum of the election season. We wish you all good luck, and it'll be fun to see as this evolves and as you have more opportunities to see how this progresses, and best of luck to all of you. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.